take a look at the map bans because it's going to be underway in a moment. And C-Daps, I want to hear your initial thoughts.
Well, the thing about both of these teams is that their map pool is almost entirely the same. They don't like Bank, they don't like Villa, and they don't like Coastline. But as you see these first two bans coming out, it almost feels like it's a game of chicken where, sure, SSG, they blinked first. They took one of those kind of overlap maps, one of those ones in the middle of the Venn diagram that they don't necessarily like. But they also throw the curveball of picking the Villa. And this is what I thought was going to be really interesting about this game, where now it happens again. Both of these teams have had a permaban all of the stage, and now it's being unleashed at the greatest time ever at NA Finals?
What am I looking at right here?
What is going on right now? Okay, so DarkZero chose Coastline. And at the same time, Jacob and I made a stink face. Jacob, why is this such a big question to us?
It's just not something that DarkZero ever played. They're 1-1 on it so far over the entirety of 2021, and we'll get Clubhouse to finish things out. Villa picked from SSG, something that they played in the North American League twice and lost both times. They did win it 3 times internationally, twice against Team Empire, with some clutches that will live in infamy, especially in Sweden. But when we get to the other maps, Coastline, it's just not a map that we see DarkZero play very consistently, and it's weird to see them play it. It's also a map that Spacestation, they've only played it once and they lost it once, so they may be capitalizing more on the fact that, if you remember, they played this in Sweden against NIP and they weren't able to close it out. We hit Clubhouse later. That might be both teams' best maps straight up, so I kind of want to go the whole 3-map distance because that will be the best representation of who was supposed to win.
And it's really weird, especially considering the fact that DarkZero usually gets upset on Coastline. So now that we're going here, I'm going to see what tricks they have up their sleeve. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time. Let's get into predictions. Jesse isn't here to lose the prediction battle as usual, but C-Dabs, as the new guy on the desk, is going to be up to you first. Are you rocking with Spacestation Gaming, or is it going to be DarkZero?
You know, I originally was just thinking in my heart, SSG takes this 2-0, but when a team comes out and they whip out a map that we have not seen, it means that they are taking this incredibly serious. DZ, they need a victory. I think they're going to get it today. I don't even think it's going to go to your decider of Clubhouse. I think it's a flat 2-0. I think both of those maps.
DZ.
I think it's a 2-0 for DZ. I'm going to go ahead and say it.
All right, 2-0 for DZ for C-Daps. And Jacob, are you going to be that bold?
Unfortunately, he's coming right out of CL. There are only so many hot takes I'm willing to sustain on this desk.
We'll allow it for
eventually, you will learn your place, young grasshopper. But here's the idea. We're looking at a DarkZero team that, in spite of having some success after that role swap over the first 5 games they played in the NAL in Stage 3, it's still not something that I think is going to work against a Spacestation team that last time they played, it was on Oregon. It was like a 7-1, 7-2, and we were looking at Spacestation to win that game without DarkZero winning a single round. It was that intense. And I think that they can do it again. The map selection, while it is a tad bit confusing, even if we don't go to a decider map, I still have faith that the way in which Spacestation banned, it's engineered to go this way. They're confident in almost all of these maps. It's not like they're a 4 or 5 map team. They can play anything except for Bank because no one really wanted to play Bank in Stage 3. So they can play anything. I'll give it to Spacestation, but it might still be a 2-1 affair.
Well, why a 2-0, C-Daps? That's really hitting me hard right now. You have a lot of faith in DZ right now to dominate Spacestation.
I do. When you have that much of a window to come in and you have as hardworking players as the entire DZ roster, so much can change in the blink of an eye. I think we're going to see almost a completely different team.
True. Now, also going to Clubhouse, that's going to be really scary. Now, you were also saying that Clubhouse goes both ways, but at first, Clubhouse belonged to Spacestation Gaming. Canadia's on DZ, so the strats are kind of shared. Do you think it's going to be close if we get there?
It totally should be. It was a matter of Oregon versus Clubhouse for that last game, which I do think probably still would have been the same case. It was a map that both teams ended up liking overall, and it's probably still one that DarkZero, if they had the option between both of them, let's go for the one that they won on more consistently, and that still was Clubhouse. The decider map, again, still might not be relevant based upon how you think the series is going to go overall. So, yeah, it'll still be close. And I don't think that this is going to be a game won easily by either team. I'm still going to give the edge to Spacestation because DarkZero have not been as consistent. And, again, Spacestation have not lost more than 3 maps over the course of the past 6 months.
That's insane, and that's going to lead to my point right now. So, you two had fun predictions, and I'm going to jump on board because at the end of the day, you know, I'm going to have some fun myself. When it comes to DarkZero versus Spacestation Gaming, I'm going to have to go off of what we've seen lately in the NAL. And lately, Spacestation Gaming has been one of the most dominant teams that I've ever seen in North America, right? Now, bringing in Skies was like, okay, this team is crazy, right? They're stacked, they're good. but Hot and Cold's just submergence. He's like a phoenix coming up from the ashes, coming out of hard breach and dominating everybody. He's able to take over a game. And we're talking about a guy that's not just one of the best players in the lobby. Okay, we're talking about a guy that can pop off with 15, 20 kills if he wanted to. And because of that, I'm going to have to rock with the Space Boys. And I think it's going to be a 2-1 victory.
All right.
I think we're going to go to Clubhouse.
We've made a sandwich with the new guy. Look at that.
Exactly. So C-Dubs, if you lose this one, listen, you're taking Jesse's spot.
So I have really low expectations.
Yes. Now, who do you think is going to be the biggest standout in this lobby?
You know, I have to think that Mr. Eclipse is going to do pretty well today.
Now,
that's just in my gut. I have a feeling.
That's really interesting because Eclipse, compared to players like Hyper, even Rampy, Bosco, whatnot, he's very quiet. But in the lobby, his play is very loud. What do you like so much about him?
Well, I just like how consistent he is. He's like a rock for DZ where, sure, you can still see him pop off at certain moments, but most of the time it's the kind of unproven, or not necessarily unproven, the unseen acts where it's the grunt work. It's the stuff that nobody else wants to do, but that's what it takes to be the best.
Yeah, and also, let's talk about DarkZero for just a quick moment. When you take a look at players like NJR and also Panba, having players that are so young that are having this much experience when it comes to lands, especially with the NAO, because we do have a land system here. I mean, they've grown a lot, especially NJR, and I'm loving his role change. Now, it's looking so smart on the side of DZ.
It took a while for DarkZero to figure out how to utilize NJR. There's something in wrestling called the hard dungeon, which is the idea of going literally into a basement and training to become the best wrestler of all time. That's something that produced a lot of very good wrestlers in the period in which it was a thing. There's also the DZ dungeon, which is the space in which NJR was built into the player that he is now. We thought he'd be the hyper NJR like entry duo back in stage 1. We hyped that up. In the same way that we also hyped up Panba and Hyper, like, oh my gosh, he has the second entry player that they need to succeed. But instead, he's moved on to something away from what is that second entry and more into its flank watch, its sledge, especially with the role change they had in stage 3. He is now their primary sledge player, where Eclipse was doing it for those first 5 games. And that seems to be where he settled. He likes playing smoke. He's always going to anchor. He isn't expected to be the guy to get the initial kills and play aggro. He can be combative, but not as the frontline guy. And it took a little bit to figure out how to utilize him. I was worried DZ maybe didn't know how to utilize their talent, or maybe some of them were being squandered. Not anymore. NJR fits really well into the system, even if we don't talk about him very much.
Right, and speaking about talking, you guys have been saying, hey, you know, casters, be quiet, start the game, probably in the chat. Shout out to you guys. But don't fret, because right now, it's about time to get things started, and I am so happy to toss this. Well, it's going to be my first time, too. Pengu and Intero, take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Veli, and thank you very much to the desk. C-Daps did a wonderful job in his debut at this level, stepping in under a little bit last-minute circumstances. I thought he did quite well, so congratulations, C-Daps.
Very much agreed here on my end. When I saw him first, I thought this is the guy's first time on a desk. He's owning it, he looks comfortable, and he speaks with confidence behind his words.
It's almost like when you made your casting debut. So you're not too far removed from that. You know exactly what it's like, but enough about that. We have a community poll for you today to go over in just a moment. Before we get into the matchup, there are 2 retirees on this stage. Nicholas, you are a retiree. Between the 2 of them, both Skies and Canadian, different sides of the coin, once played for DZ, but now Skies on SSG. Which ex-retiree will have the best performance today? If I were to ask you to bet, what would you say?
So this is a bit of an odd one, right? Because they obviously play a bit of different roles, and they do have different stories in the game. Seeing the way Canadian has been playing lately, he's not necessarily a heavy hitter on the scoreboard, but the value he brings to his team, we always make this kind of comparison to Superware. They're not crazy flashy, but they get the job done, and the value they bring to their teammates with IGLing and with leadership brings them really far. Individually, I'm gonna go with Kid Skies, but as a team, I do believe that DarkZero will triumph, if anything.
Well, I like that you mentioned his actual performance, because in terms of the stats that these teams as individuals have, it's really remarkable how even they all are. So there are 3 players on Spacestation, all of whom are in the top 10, Nick. 11th, 12th, and 13th are all DZ players. In fact, if you look at the actual numbers, there are only 3 players in this entire lobby that are not in the top 20, Bosco, Eclipse, and Canadian. Now, Canadian's stats are not particularly bad, especially for a team that just skated into the top 4. But I do agree with you. I think a strong series from Canadian will be required here. You cannot get to this level of play, and you cannot hope to be the best team in your region when somebody is underperforming.
Very, very true, and they did speak about it on the desk. Both of these teams have had this kind of a weird year where players have been coming and going, and then they've been fiddling with their roster and trying to figure out what are the pieces that they need to make it a thriving situation. Obviously, we all know SSG is, I would say, arguably non-biased, the best team in North America throughout this entire year, but most importantly, in more recent times with Stage 2 and Stage 3, where they've been on an absolute heater, and one of those big additions was Hot and Cold. And yeah, it's a very similar story for both teams, and they've had very different results so far.
They highlighted Hot and Cold on the pre-show, but I really do think we need to give a greater look at these numbers that he has put up. Now, there was a bit of a joke in regards to whether or not he would be seen as the MVP of Stage 3 because it had eluded him before, but a very deserved win. And if you look at them, by God, he finished with a 1.48 rating in first place. The next closest was Vertical with a 1.37, and then it drops to a 1.24. That is a huge drop-off from first place. And Hot and Cold ended with the most kills in the league, 4 away from breaking 100. The next closest is Vertical with 90 kills, and then after that, it's 83 kills for Rexen. So again, a huge drop-off, and Hot and Cold was playing on such pivotal roles too. It's not like he was just the main entry. There were times where he played cleanup, there were times where he could flex as well, and he really proved his worth for Spacestation, and their success is in part because of his success, Nick. But let's not waste any time. We have some Italian countryside to visit, as we will take a relatively long trip from Los Angeles, or Las Vegas if the teams are playing there, all the way over to Italy, and we'll start off with our very first map here between Spacestation and DarkZero on Villa.
Very nice. Super excited to get going. I do want to point out, keep an eye on that Ying. Both teams can play it. It is Hot and Cold from the side of SSG, and Troy can play it from DarkZero. I'm curious if both teams will allow it to go through, or if one might eliminate. Elimination, Thatcher off the board. That is something that we can say time and time again with closed eyes that is going to happen as a certainty. But the second attacker ban is actually going to be the Finger, picked off the board by SSG. That's gonna target those grenades and the soft breach, and we all know that SSG loves playing around the shields, and now they will be just a tiny bit more protected. Nice answer back as well. Goyo off the board, shields eliminated, so you'll have to bring out the smokes, the Ella, the frost, etc. to compensate for the loss of shields from the Goyo.
Now here's something quite interesting. Finka's pick rate is middle of the pack in terms of influence of all attackers through Stage 3. This is the first time that we've actually seen a Finka be banned in North American regional play. Yeah, we saw a bunch of Finka bans in Sweden, but Sweden was a potpourri of teams. There were teams from all 4 of the main regions. Here, it is the first time that we see a Finka ban emerging in Stage 3 of the North American League. Of course, as you said, both Goyo and Mira will join as well. A couple changes in-game for those of you that might not have watched the EUL playoffs earlier today. The EUL finals were just a couple hours before we went live. There's been some changes and some tinkering to the HUD. You'll notice this as we get in the actual game. Things like changing the operator cards here, the font, the actual background, etc. Just cleaning it up. So if you're wondering, yes, that came with the most recent season that dropped just a couple weeks ago.
Yes, you also have an in-game drone counter for the actual players, where we've had one on stream for our viewers' eyes and spectators' eyes, but the players themselves now have a drone counter, which means they know exactly how many drones are remaining in the round, which also kind of will, you know, typically probably they count themselves, but we all know that it ain't perfect. Sometimes you lose track of the numbers, but now teams can with more accuracy know for a fact just how much information is available to the opposing side, and they can play around that as they need to with that knowledge.
Interesting enough that with the Thatcher ban coming out, the most banned operator
By far.
his ban rate right now sitting at 72%, tied with Valkyrie.
Yep.
Thatcher gets banned, Valkyrie doesn't, but the next most banned attacker is Flores, and he will likely have a lot of prevalency in this matchup, because as you can see, he's unbanned, and Hot and Cold will immediately pick that operator. So this is something we talked about. Hot and Cold's contributions to the team, Nick, was that he can work to get kills. He's only 4 away from 100 for this stage, But more importantly, this Flores is too valuable and far too risky to engage as your entry, so expect some utility work from Hot and Cold before the fragging begins.
Yeah, I think it's going to set the tone that, as you said, he's going to take it more of a back foot. He's going to make sure that he gets his drones out, utility out, and then after that fact, he can be enabled as this sort of entry player once the drones have done their work. And often we see this from SSG where they start out with this kind of philosophy where they want to clear utility, but I think if they end up hitting a round that they can't take, and there we see the first drone finds the first shield, and that's great value for Hot and Cold.
And that's a very common deployable shield set up on top of the map or model, depending on what you want to call it, inside of Aviator and Game's bomb site, which is where we will see the very first defense for DarkZero. This is a typical bomb site. Villa does allow all 4 sites to be played, but Aviator tends to be the most reliable.
Yeah, and Library tends not to get that much love. It is one of those, it is playable, it happens, but it's not a preferred bomb site for pretty much any team out there that I've seen at least. But occasionally we'll see some teams try and throw it in their case of strats.
This is an interesting thing that we just witnessed. The Yokai from Eclipse was scouting over towards the trophy statuary side of the map, just giving intel to Hyper. Spacestation somehow have managed to evade any form of altercation yet as we hit the halfway point now in round number 1. Hyper swatting away at drones and taking the fight to SSG, who are all still positioned over on the other side of the map.
One important thing to note is while we do have 4 players from SSG cleaning out the master bedroom side for the roam clear, Hot and Cold actually opening kill for Hyper, followed by Canadian. 2 kills now from the side of DarkZero out of nowhere. I don't know if they pushed up or whatever they did, but it worked. And now they're gonna be scrambling as Bosco's left alone on this side of the map with 2 players on Hot and Cold and Skies on that study balcony.
Bosco chasing ghosts right now, and a nice fire through the wall into Skies, just seeing a shred of Hyper, and the first kill for Spacestation comes in. Still fighting from behind. The deficit here for Spacestation, if it grows, the likelihood of them being able to do anything falls even further. 30 seconds left in the round for Spacestation on this very first attack. The objective is in their hands to get that diffuser down and stop the bombs from going off. But right now, DZ seem to be effortlessly bouncing them away and cleaning them out as Canadian losing some life to Skies now. An execute happening in front of our eyes, 20 seconds to go. Panbazoo still anchored down, watching Study, playing around this deployable shield. He can see towards 90. If SSG rushes in without much knowledge, then they're going to get punished for it. And Skies is the intended target. Bosco getting the diffuser down. The Yokai, can it do anything in time? Yes, Bosco falls off the plant. Eclipse is trapped inside a vault, so he's going to run right out, taken down. Panbazoo will need to clutch out. Hutton is down. Bosco pops up after getting the diffuser down, but it's NJR in a monstrous clutch in round 1 to give DZ the very first round of this matchup.
What a great way to start off this matchup. It looked like it was in the hands of DarkZero. All of a sudden, SSG, to bring it back, to get the breach off, to get the angles, the bomb goes down, but NJR on the floor with the shotgun in hand makes it work. Very, very close round, and oh my god, SSG, I loved what they were doing. They had 3 players. They were started with 4 players on master side. They got the map control. They got into that lockdown of top red. They got into the bomb side doors, and then it was Hot and Cold waiting on starting balcony. Kids guys rotated all the way around after helping with the roam clear, got the walls open from study, and they made great work with that. They denied the vault angle that enabled the plant, and we saw exactly what happened. SSG playing with 2 man down ended up in a 4 versus 3 afterwards, but beautiful work.
That was so close from Spacestation too. Bosco is somebody who has pulled off a number of miraculous clutches.
Yes, too many.
Throughout his career, and Villa in particular has been the map for him more often than not, it seems. But sometimes when you're put in that clutch position, you don't always pull it off. That's why clutches are so hyped up, because they are as uncommon as they are. I really like that early round aggression from DarkZero. 90 seconds into the round, and Spacestation had only taken a small part of map control. They've been able to wrestle their way through the bedroom, into trophy, into statuary, and then they kind of stalled out. They had some control over the stairs. Hot and Cold was isolated from the rest of the team. He joins them. Sky's isolated from the rest of the team over towards Study, expecting that split push to happen. So DZ realizes with that lull, we've got intel. Let's use it to our advantage. Take out 2 key pieces of Space Station. Space Station fights back, but at that point, there's only 10 seconds left when the execute really started happening. You, as a defending team, are in a great position at that point, especially if you've got anti-plant utility like nitro cells, like shotguns, like those toxic canisters.
Yup, and that is why the smoke is so crucial to every single bomb set, every single map pretty much. Great guns, great gadget, and of course bringing that deployable shield is something that every single defender loves to hide behind because they bring cover and they bring information. Similar fashion, DC, they don't want to poke around too much in the early stage. They have chosen their area, which is this Astro trophy and statue setup. And what it looks like they're actually bunkering down inside of Astro, so they might try and see if SSG will leave them here up on this island. And SSG will in return have to answer back and see if they want to leave them that space or take it away from them in an instant.
That's the reverse situation now, where SSG have taken up top, but the area where the bomb site used to be, which is over towards Aviator Endgame, it's not there anymore because now they're downstairs defending Kitchen.
Yep.
Fultz on this Gemini will run right in. Hyper saw the arm, I'm certain, and now again will get quite aggressive. He did this successfully in the very first round with the Yokai backing him up. A drone skates by underneath the casing of his reticle. I don't know if he saw it. Spacestation might have some information to be able to pounce off of this, making noise just outside of the wall.
Oh, look at the push.
As we hit the halfway point, and there you go. Hyper does have information, but it's answered immediately by Bosco. Down they go as they just don't know where Panbazoo is, nor the rest of DarkZero, as the gunfire continues to rain out, leaving Skies in a 1v4 right now inside a master bedroom. And he doesn't know what he's going to be able to do here. Trying to take engagements, but Panbazoo is on the ground. Is it a three-piece for the youngster on DarkZero? And it's 2-0 to start off Villa.
It's really, really beautiful to see the duo of Hyper and the party Panbazoo to really make this work. Both times they lashed out together and they found great value for their money. Hyper went out, got the 1-for-1 trade, and you'd think that's alright for DC. We see it right here, but Pampa strikes out as well, and as the players from SSG has to respect the swing from Hyper, they turn their crosshairs 90 degrees, and what happens? Well, boom, Pampa's there, out of nowhere, and also gets a 2-piece. And that brings DC to these areas where whenever SSG are in a chokehold, when they're in a choke point, they cannot really progress further on the map. They don't get any breathing room because DarkZero are just swinging at the right moments, but most importantly, they're doing it together.
Well, this is Space Station's map, need we remind you, and yes, Villa does skew towards the defenders. This is the basic way to look at this matchup. Space Station obviously like this map, but they are not starting off on a good tempo at all. DarkZero really need to come out of the gate swinging. This is a team that missed the first 2 play days of Stage 3 because of issues that the team had with COVID protocols coming back to America after the Mexico Major. So they had that really condensed schedule on the final couple play days. And DarkZero almost needed to go perfect while also getting a little bit of help from TSM choking in the final couple days. And guess what happened? Exactly that. And DarkZero managed to qualify for the Sweden Major, the NA Finals, and the 6 Invitational, all on the very final day, Stage 3 of the NA League. So they, I don't want to say limped in, but they certainly didn't end up here in the finals on strong footing. So it stands to reason that they need to come out hot. Space Station was by far and away the best team in the Stage 3 of the NAL. They had a good performance at Sweden. This is a team that we know can succeed, and I feel like a lot of people are not underrating DarkZero, but I think they had a healthy view of where DarkZero's potential was. This 2-0 start right now for DZ is, if you're a fan of theirs, worth being a little bit confident about.
No, certainly, and I mean, DC, as you said, they are a bit of like the underdog, where we don't expect them to go toe-to-toe at SSG or beat them out just outright. But then again, it is Villa. DC are starting a defense, and I would say when you are in these best of threes on the very first game of the entire tournament, when you get to defend on Villa first, you're pretty comfortable in your seat, and you can create all these problems for the opposing team that is Space Station to solve, and it's just a little bit easier doing nothing versus having to solve all these constant problems that DarkZero throwing your way. And we see it again and again and again. DarkZero, they're not doing too much. They're comfortable, they're being nearby the bomb site, and they're playing together, and SSG has to make all the moves, progress through the map, and they're doing so actually a bit slower this time around.
I wonder if SSG are just simply, at the moment, in their own head. I mean, here you have the NA League Finals. You have the favored matchup right now as the #1 seed. You're looking at OXG and the Sonics as teams 2 and 3 for tomorrow, and frankly, I don't want to say a stunning start for DarkZero, but not exactly the expected start that we had of them. And we're not trying to undersell DZ by any stretch of the imagination, but DZ are not necessarily the team that can 2-0 SSG, despite what CDAPs might say.
There's faith, there's possibilities, and anything can happen, but you are correct, Parker. I wouldn't go as far and say that, oh, DarkZero is going to just beat SSG 2-0, no doubt about it. I believe I've seen it before. No. We haven't really seen that before. SSG is the team we speak about when we speak of North America. SSG this round, though, with a minute left only, they've kind of been all across the map. They're on the master balcony, then they went on to study side. Now they're down below in kitchen dining, and Rambi, unless he finds a nade opening kill to the floor, I don't think they're gonna find any easy openings, which means once again they will have to fight tooth and nail, but the nail gets fought, but no kills comes from it.
Hyper once again looking for the opening pick, but it's Spacestation to capitalize this time, or rather, sorry, Hyper looking for that opening pick, but he's not going to get it. Fultz had already dropped earlier on. It's tricky sometimes trying to read this in the ensuing fray. 30 seconds left, and DZ posted up, wanting the engagement that they could so desire. Canadian falling, and next thing you know, all of DZ wiped out. So a desperation C4 from Eclipse. It connects onto Rampy, but Eclipse will retake, not knowing there's one on the window. Flash quite heavily, and he'll blindly run down those stairs. Still, coverage upside down as Hot and Cold manages to get the diffuser down, and Eclipse is flashed yet again. The Nomad of Bosco still on Repel here, and it's Hot and Cold to seal the deal. Objective work as he gets the diffuser planted, and then the kill to boot. No perfect rotation from DarkZero. They drop their very first round, and SSG is finally on the board.
Those changes to the flashbangs basically making the guarantee that you get blinded as long as you're within like an 8-meter range, give or take, absolutely bullying Eclipse on the staircase. And I have to eat my words because I thought that looked fantastic for DarkZero. SSG didn't have much to work with, but they made great work of what they did have. And that was the entry, that was the chaos. And once they pushed that go button, they got 3 kills within like a split second. And basically took the entire bomb site control, leaving the last player from DarkZero down below, who couldn't, to be fair, do all that much once the C4 was tossed. And it did, to be fair, find the kill. Oh, did I see a box 6 pick from Hot and Cold? I did. We spoke about that the very first round. You start out on a certain utility-based operator, and once it starts getting raw for you, don't really necessarily find the openings that you want. You can get onto this flex pick of Buck or the Ying, as we often see, and really start working that map for your team, whether it be opening up the floor, finding angles, or just allowing for entry. Hot and Cold can do it all, and the Buck comes out.
This is what? This is his 3rd operator now, as he'd played Jackal before that, and Flores in the very first round. So quite a nice revolving door of operators for Hot and Cold. And we apologize, by the way, but he does tend to take up quite a lot of oxygen when we see him play. And with that 4th kill, for the record, he's now broken 100 kills here for Stage 3, if you consider this to be a part of the 3rd stage. So Hot and Cold now sitting at a mighty fine tally of 147 deaths. Not too bad.
I mean, that's impressive, and congratulations, of course. I mean, I'm gonna count this because that's the kind of guy that I am, but if you're at home, you don't want to count it, whatever. You don't
So
really
kind
care
of
too
you.
much.
This is so kind of you.
In my head, it counts. That's all that matters to me.
Well, that said, back upstairs to Aviator Endgames, the same bomb site that DarkZero started all of this nonsense that we have seen thus far, and these rounds have been full of nonsense. And we see that there could be more of it. NJR and Bazoo, as well as Hyper, all using the buddy system. Inches away from one another.
Big priority on this main stairs here. They know what SSG wants, and here it comes. Panbitsu finds 1, finds 2, and it gets shot down immediately. No need for refrag whatsoever.
Well, those front stairs are not going to work out very well for Spacestation. Hot and Cold to the rescue, potentially. Yes, he outduels Panba, but loses all but a sliver of HP in the process. This round playing out very similarly in terms of the kill feed to what we saw back in round 1. DarkZero netting those first 2 picks. Eventually, the momentum slows down, because that 3v5 or the 5v3 if you're DarkZero does tend to be the most dangerous position in the game.
This is the thing that bothers me a little bit. There is a shield top main. We see that NJR is sitting on it, I believe. And SSG, they had 4 grenades. They had a Gone 6 on Ana. Both of those grenade players are down below, where it's kind of difficult to nade out that shield position. Surely one of those players could have been on that study balcony. You can go into the window where we see that SSG are playing actively. Toss that grenade after those flashbangs and clear the shield. And then as you come up the main stairs, you run into office and you get like a pinch together. Instead, it was just Panba in an easy 2 versus 1 gunfight and finds both and almost a 3rd onto Hot and Cold. That's sloppy.
Did you see a drone head up those stairs, by the way, before we saw the clown car doors open up and the SSG players fall through?
Yep.
I didn't see that, so
I didn't see a drone either. Of course, they knew there were going to be players there, but they didn't know there's going to be 3 players sitting there. I don't think so.
Primed and ready for them, no doubt. As you said, that utility work from Spacestation could have been better to clear it out, but still, DZ, what a remarkable play on the stairs. And Panda in particular with 7 kills, though he'll sit out the rest of this round. Only 30 seconds to go, and there's flashes for Hyper, which he cannot avoid. It's Bosco governing over the window, looking for some legs, but if he swings in, it will almost certainly be to his doom, firing on the wall to try and get some attention, and he's stunned instead. There's Eclipse on the roam with the Scorpion taking down Hot and Cold, shredding through them. A ping towards 90 stairs lets him know that one other player from Space Station is in that area. Bosco wins the gunfight onto Eclipse. With the Scorpion, Eclipse was outgunned, simply put. Through that same wall that Bosco was looking at, it's Canadian, the former player from Space Station, to get a big 2-piece. And DZ, they go back to 2 rounds over Space Station. 3-1 the scoreline.
Very nice discipline from DarkZero. I don't know if necessarily Eclipse had to swing into 90 there. He had the body system of him and Hyper playing top red, but it happened. But overall, really, really nice discipline, and that's something that we can always expect from teams like DarkZero, where they have the structure. And some people would argue that the structure of DarkZero is also one of their downfalls because they're predictable, they're easy to read. But so far throughout this matchup, I don't think that's necessarily been the case. And yeah, it's very early on. We're entering round 5. We just finished round 4. But Panda, Hyper, and Eclipse all working around the map and making sure that it's not going to be too easy to read them this time around.
It's another kitchen defense now for DarkZero as we are drawing close to the end of this first half. And, well, DarkZero started on the favored side for Villa because Space Station chose the map. DZ opted to go to defense.
Yes.
They were the team that got to choose which side they wanted to go to. And, hey, it looks like it was a pretty wise idea. The last time that DarkZero defended this bomb site, all of the altercations that occurred were on that top floor, over by where trophy and statuary would be as bomb sites, which tend to be over part of this kitchen dining room bomb site. So the big thing for me to watch, Space Station's entry so far has been quite poor. They only have 1 opening pick of the 4 rounds thus far. They're getting beaten by DZ. It doesn't look like they have tons of information. Their utility work upon entry also quite minimal. If Space Station can walk in, assume map control confidently, gain information, and then get a pick or 2 to snowball, I'm interested to see what DZ does on the actual bomb site, because we never got to that point. Well, I mean, hey, we talked about an opening pick, and right just like that, NJR falls. Space Station gets that very first blood on this kitchen defense, and they are ready to roll right now as 2 players from Space Station are lined up by Laundry and have a golden opportunity to burst into the bomb site.
That they certainly do, and I mean, it is. You spoke about it a little bit. You know, DarkZero got the defender side. I'm curious to see what they're going to do in attack, but before we get there, this is going to be a rough one. You're down a player already very early on. It is the smoke of all operators as well, which means now SSG got a little bit more time on that clock. Those like last 30, 25 seconds, they're not as scary anymore with those toxic babes off the ground. But the question comes, will they opt for verticality, or will it be more of a straight direct attack?
And this also allows Space Station to really take control of the Laundry portion of this map, because in the dying 30 to 40 seconds of a round, most teams will position their smoke in a way to toss out those toxic canisters, preventing the attackers from rushing in through that Laundry door and plant in what is known as default spot. So this allows SSG more maneuverability and more options on the site.
Yeah, they're going to be actually roaming on the map here. They want to try and go for this horizontal take, and Hot and Cold will see the feed and getting awfully close to side. Yellow Ping comes out. Nate trades with the C4, but Hot and Cold has found himself all the way inside of kitchen. Gets a freebie. Oh, almost wasn't one, but it was in the end. A jump over from Pambus who gets shot down by Force, and now we see Hyper trying to play retake.
There he is punching through the wall, but there's 4 bodies from Space Station that he has to contend with. He's a talented player, and we know that he can pull this off under certain circumstances, but with the patience that Space Station exhibits, holding the angles and watching the crossfire that will occur when Hyper walks through a single doorway, he is not long for this earth. It's Bosco to be the one credited with that kill. And now we find ourselves in an interesting position, and this is exactly where Space Station wants to be. They cannot win the half, but if they win the next round, we hit that reset button and we go to the second half tied 3-3.
I mean, if you go 3-3, I think you're very, very happy. I would be, at least. And the early pick, of course, SSG favor massively, but other than that, DarkZero left a lot of gaps in that defensive round. SSG could practically walk in entirely for free. Nothing was held horizontally for DarkZero. It was all vertical, and once the players on site they fall, you play this awkward game of retake, and you saw Pambasu jump over the trophy statue edge into jungle, and that didn't work out. Hybrid dropped the hedge into brown stairs, that didn't work out, and that's the name of the game. And if you don't have the shotgun player playing up above, you have to drop down because you can't destroy the floor.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct in regards to win conditions here now. If Spacestation can escape this first half tied up, then DarkZero will be in a rougher position for the second half. So if you're DZ, this round is, I don't want to say a must-win, because it's not. You can still do well on the other half. But
Certainly.
in terms of the bigger picture, this is going to be as close to a must-win as DZ can get before they end up potentially eliminated, or at least end up on match point. So, with that said, very final defense of DarkZero. Spacestation bringing a lineup that we have seen time and time again. Hot and Cold reunited with that Flores. For DarkZero, the Frost will be coming out, and they don't want another crack at the kitchen defense down below. We know that teams that Canadian plays on like to run Frost. We've seen it before. DarkZero have run Frost before as well. How do her mats play into a bomb site like Trophy Statuary that we're seeing DZ defend right now?
I mean, it helps with Eclipse's position inside of Closet. That's the most common factor for this Frost pick, is that they gotta jump in that window, they gotta worry about NJR inside of bathroom, Eclipse inside of Closet, and that Frost trap as well will be another factor to account for. They're very hard to destroy with soft grenades, and of course, those grenades are not gonna wanna be used for a trap. They wanna try and grenade out the player himself inside of Closet. So Eclipse, star player of this round, keep an eye on him, and of course NJR, his buddy, to help him.
Let's see that Frostmat and Mute Jammer combo just underneath the window of Closet, as we talked about. I think that Frostmat can actually be shot through the window.
It's
without
a bit
vaulting in.
far
Yeah.
away this time because the Mute Jammer's there.
I
But
understand what they're trying to do, by the way, and if the Frost was a 6th pick, and I didn't see if that's the operator that DZ used for their 6th pick, this could be something that is flying under the radar, unless we've seen Space Station drone them out. And the focus right now from Space Station onto this DZ defense seems to be over towards the Closet. And a drone gets tossed in. I think that was out of the Mute Jammer's range, but it's shot immediately. So even though you don't gain any real knowledge there, you still know somebody's playing in there. First pick goes in favor of Space Station. NJR down for the count, and a grenade gets tossed in, but it misses. They don't know that Eclipse is playing Rat underneath the window. Another grenade will go in, and no damage is done to him. Do they have information? Do they lack critical information, Nick? Because if they hop in, it will be absolutely to their doom.
oh, Eclipse, oh, he gets found out. I was thinking for a brief moment, maybe he jumps out and finds something for himself, but no, Hot and Cold on that south window. Make sure that he does not.
1 minute left now. DZ find themselves in a more precarious position than before. They've ceded some control inside of this master bedroom area, but still playing at the statuary doorway is Hyper, and he can get lucky here off of a single vault in on the window. Also, we don't know where the remaining Frost traps are, so if you hop in, with time not being on your side, Space Station could squander the lead that they have in terms of numbers. Grenade goes out, and it doesn't do anything of any importance to DarkZero. Canadian felled by Bosco, and now SSG will march up Astro stairs. First kill for DarkZero comes in. It's 2 for Pambazoo. Traded immediately by Skies. And it's Hyper. No, it's nobody. DZ washed away in that round. And just as we predicted, it's a 3-3 scoreline for the first half. These teams tied up as they swap sides.
It seems like SSG might have awoken after those first half of those 3-4 rounds, most of those going in favor of DC, as they took 3 of the first 4, but now tied up 3-3. I think SSG can be very happy with that, and of course, they have a bit of the mental advantage, if you will, going into the side swap, and now all of a sudden, it's gonna get a lot more difficult for DarkZero, as we know that in their past, except for the last few playdays of Stage 3 of NAL, they have had abysmal attacks throughout this year.
That was something that the analyst desk have focused on quite a lot over the entirety of the year. Not even just this stage, is how DarkZero's attacks have struggled in comparison to their peers. And while they, as a team, have still hovered in that top 4, it has been carried by how proficient their defense have been. Now, the good news for DarkZero is that you still have an opportunity on defense when you go to map number 2 on Coastline. But that's all she wrote for you defending on Villa. That's it. You don't get any other opportunities. DZ are going to have to do something and subvert expectations, which is start to rack them up on attack. Or else, Space Station wins their map, things go largely according to plan, and then DZ stares down elimination on map number 2. So I'm interested. DZ are not necessarily playing poor strategic work. It seems like in a number of cases, they still have that confidence from the first couple rounds. They took engagements based on information they had, and SSG, as you put it, woke up. They hit their shots. They punished that aggression from DZ that could have been a bit more restrained, and that's enough to flip 1 to 2 rounds.
It is, and I mean, going 3-3 is not the end of the world, right? So like now all DarkZero has to do is basically do the same thing again. Worst case you go OT, and at best case you take it in regulation. Playing a very similar setup from both teams, holding up that top main. Falls on Oryx in the basement roam, all alone across the map. He's not gonna find anybody anytime soon because, to be frank, there is no one quite near him. Closest person with Canadian on Astro Rappel, but they are 2 floors apart, so unlikely anything's gonna come out of that. I don't know if you saw last round, Parker, but NGR was playing Warden. You know what Warden has? A very nice suit. Speaking of suits, do you want to tell me a little bit about what you happen to be wearing today?
Well, thank you so much for asking, Nick. I'm actually wearing a company called Indochino. I don't know if you've heard of them before.
I think I have that as well, actually, today.
But
yeah.
it's great. You visit a showroom, Nick. They take your measurements. They design a suit custom just for you, and then they send it to you. And that's it. And you look fly. And you don't have to worry about getting it off the rack and not being able to accessorize or get it properly tailored because these suits are literally built for you.
So, Indochino, made for you. That is the name of the game, and this name of this game right now is Canadian Crouch walking down the Astro stairs, trying to figure out the whereabouts of Falls as he has made himself up a 1 floor at a time with the option of jumping up a hatch, and it seems like both players have a sort of idea of the whereabouts of one another. Falls doesn't want to challenge, so he runs away.
It was not too far away from one of the silhouettes of the DarkZero players. It's the first time we're seeing a Twitch appear, by the way, something that we need to focus on as well. And I think this is a debut for Zofia as well. I don't remember Spacestation running her.
No.
Are you saying no as in it's not her debut, or are you saying no?
I'm saying no as in they didn't play her. Yes, it is her debut.
Okay, so
that's what I'm saying.
I was very confused. It would help.
My bad.
You need to clarify.
Yes,
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I feel a little bit better. That said, Hot and Cold still on the roam now, looking over towards Study. There's really 2 ways to take this bomb site. You can do it by Study and main stairs up towards Classical, or you can do it over from Master Bedroom and then through Trophy Statuary and 90. Right now, DarkZero's focus is almost solely over towards Study. And they get the first pick, by the way, but it's traded back immediately. So both teams essentially walking away on even footing. Eclipse falls Hyper down as well. Canadian trying his best to 2-piece for him. He's just chewing right through them. Rampy is down, so it's Fultz in a 1v2. He's a real difference maker. One of the top performers in the North American League all year long on the fastest operator in the game. 10 seconds left, and there's some bullets from his T5 going out. Looking towards the angle. He sees it, engages with Panbazoo. You've got to imagine that FAMAS is a much better gun, and he needs to pick his target left or right. Which way is it going to be? Diffuser down, so you are at the mercy of the clock, but you're also at the mercy of Canadian, who picks up 3 on the round, and DZ regains the lead.
We've seen Canadian with the worst gun in the game, but have you guys seen Canadian on an LMG? He did not need or want to stop firing. He practically pre-fired the guy inside of Study top main until he fell to the ground, picked up Diffuser, and while he made it back into the bomb site, Panbazoo isolated one of the last 2 remaining players from SSG, making sure that once the VIP of Troy comes around, nobody's there to stop him. They made their way in through site, they got the bomb down, and they played again a nice discipline in the 1 versus 2, not giving Falls the opening that he would need to find a clutch for himself, because a clutch is often not as much of an outplay for the person performing the clutch, but more often than not, it's a mistake or a gap being allowed by the team that throws
way too far. Rampy narrowly missing out on an opportunity to do some damage to the last player from DZ that was inside of Study. Skies is all on his own, and that's the real deal, baby! Hyper's not a clone. Skies will immediately move over to the midway point between Trophy and the main stairs. Down goes Panbazoo. Skies is just making things work right now in Eclipse. He's 4 and 6. He's got the diffuser in hand. He'll creep his way through the bathroom. Not sure exactly where his target prioritization is going to be. We have no clue what intel he has, but he imagines somebody's over by Astro Stairs. He's correct, by the way. If Rampy wants to get back to the bomb site, that's where he's going to have to go. He doesn't know where Skies is as well. Off goes the Banshee, and he's staring directly at a bulletproof camera. So these are two substantial things that will stop him from being able to clutch up here. We talked about it on the previous round. You need your opponents to make a mistake to clutch. Will Eclipse be so lucky as a flash goes out and Sky scoots away? He's on the ground, and Eclipse doesn't seem to know where he is. He engages. But Skies is good for 3. We call him Skyry for 3. He gets it. It's tied up yet again, and he's obviously very happy about that. You can see quite vocal on the bench.
Smiles across the face of Skies, and for good reason. He was single man on site against 3 opponents, found all 3, and just ran around them in circles. The bulletproof cameras, one was inside of Astro, one was inside of Trophy, overseeing that master bedroom door into Statue. Eclipse really didn't have any way in without SSG finding out, but that was a very nicely played round from Skies, and I do love to see a good smoke play every now and again, and I would like to believe that SSG is probably the team to deliver over and over and over again as a team on those SMG-11s. They do it beautifully every single time.
Now this is a little bit interesting here. It's a timeout taken from Spacestation after they just won a round. Now, I will say this. It was a 2v3 for Spacestation. They come out ahead and end up winning a 2v0 because Skies eliminates all of the competition. When we talk about clutches and we talk about 1vx's or 2vx's, it was almost like we foreshadowed it just a couple rounds ago, and we said it usually relies on your opponents making a mistake. DarkZero were spread out, and they decided to push 1v1v1 without any information as to where Skies was. They had an inkling that he was inside of that connector leading into Trophy, which is why you saw that Z ping on the wall that Eclipse tried to take advantage of. But you still don't have a full understanding of where your opponents are. They also didn't know exactly where Rampy was too. So even if you take out Skies, you've still got that bulletproof camera up. You've still got some Banshees littered around the bomb sites that you have to deal with. So maybe Space Station, while obviously happy that they won that round, still see that that wasn't an earned round or a deserved round. It could have very easily been a 5-3 in favor of DarkZero, 2 rounds away from putting this map away. And Lycan wants to smooth some issues out that he's seen on defense.
I think that's a very good take, to be honest, because winning a round doesn't mean that everything went your way and you should necessarily be happy with how you won the round. But also, don't let that take away from the fact that you shouldn't be happy to win. Of course they're happy they got the round, but the early stage, the early round of that, or the early game of that round could have been smoother, it could have been better, and I would like to believe that Lycan, he wants to get his troops back into check and making sure that if those gaps have been happening throughout as they have so far, not to make sure that it keeps on going as we're ending out this map, right? If SSG wants to continuously find momentum because it's been really back and forth, they gotta make sure that the first minute of that round goes in their favor, but at the very least, they don't keep giving up opening kills against their wish. Kitchen is up next.
I was going to say, I feel like, even though North America does tend to like that trophy living room or living room library bomb site down below. Sorry, not trophy, because we were over top of trophy, and it's just sometimes
it happens sometimes.
Even though we have seen NA teams play down below in living room library, it is not a common site.
No.
It's not a bomb site either that a lot of teams feel very confident in being able to defend, despite the fact that at some events we have actually seen it have a very high win rate for the defenders. A lot of times that's because of small sample size. If it gets played 3 times, a team that's going to play it are likely to have a strategy on it, which means that the likelihood that they win it is going to be high. They win 2 of those rounds, then they end up with a 66% win rate, and you're like, oh my god, the numbers are so high. Turns out it doesn't exactly tell the whole story. That said, this 3-site rotation that these teams have used, very common stuff. For a lot of teams, Kitchen and Trophy are interchangeable sites after Aviator, but obviously they're played out a little bit differently. I wonder what DarkZero has changed up to make another execute work. Canadian on the Buck instead of the Zolfia. They've taken some of that disruptive ability away, but don't discount the 3 flashbangs, because the rework means that you're going to get flashed whether you look away or not at close proximity. That could be a difference for DZ.
Yeah, and there is no Warden on the side of SSG, but they do have a Valkyrie, so information is key. They are going to have information, and I'm not entirely sure if DarkZero is super used to this, because we spoke about it earlier. That 73, I believe-ish ban rate on Valkyrie, you're not super used to seeing her in play, so SSG could make quick work of that. But quick work, DarkZero and Eclipse makes a fault, so they find the opening kill on round 9.
So far, the team that gets the opening pick goes on to win the round 100% of the time in this matchup. So for DarkZero, You're obviously very happy with that one. You've taken Fultz out of action, and while he, in his role as a fragger, hasn't exactly had the most impactful game just yet, that is still a significant loss for Space Station because you don't have that added pressure to roam and maneuver around the map. It likely means that if there's a blind spot to be exploited, DarkZero are going to find it, or it could pull somebody from Space Station out of their position into a weaker spot, necessitating a small change. This is not the start to a round that SSG wants after using their timeout to try and settle the team down.
But then the question comes, what do they have in mind to swing it back into their favor? So far, they're still toying up above and toying down below, which means both sides of these teams are playing both floors as well. FNG.
It's a bit of a fail there on the skeleton key, Canadian, but
Not much happened.
I'm sure you'll get that one back. Nice shot from Rampy. Somebody's been playing aim labs. He's still inside a laundry, pinned down. I don't know if they are aware of him in the corner, but a Rotero drone from Eclipse will soon find him as it gets shot away. No, it goes off. Rampy decides to swing for the fences as he can now provoke an altercation with Eclipse, who catches hot and cold. The rotate from Space Station designed to get DZ caught off guard, and they're just going to trade back and forth. Once again, Eclipse in a do-or-die situation. Space Station have not led this map once. They have but a single player to find to do just that and march their way, but Eclipse says, no,
Eclipse!
no! Space Station not gonna get it. What a miraculous clutch, and DZ do not let SSG take the lead.
I was gonna talk about how frustrating it must be to be Eclipse in those situations. You're on a drone, droning laundry, while your entire team falls apart, basically on the bomb side. But Eclipse did not care. He walked in with confidence and found both kills with a single point of health remaining. 5-4, DarkZero in a lead with a single round thanks to Eclipse.
Well, I don't want to keep saying it. We've said it so many times already on the broadcast about how sometimes when you pull off a clutch, it's not necessarily that you play it right, it's that your opponents play it wrong, but Eclipse played that so well. He expected there to still be presence from Space Station over by the laundry door, by the default plant spot, and then immediately pivoting towards the table, towards the bomb chassis, understanding that at that point, the last player from Space Station had likely rotated in from Kitchen because they know that he's coming from bikes. They know he's coming through Memorial, so you have to square him off. There is no use as a defender for you to sit inside a Kitchen and play time because at that point, Eclipse is going to try to hunt you down, and he's going to try to kill you. You take that engagement, you establish that crossfire. He's not getting through Memorial into the actual bomb site. Space Station failed to keep him from doing that, and Eclipse, in a bit of a sloppy gunfight with Skies at such short range, comes out on top. And DZ, boy oh boy, on this half in particular, Space Station have not looked confident in any of these defenses. They've lost 2 of the 3, and even the one round they won came on a really remarkable and not so consistent clutch from Skies. I'd be worried if I was Space Station. This is their map.
Yeah, a bit worrying indeed, and as you said, some clutches happen due to mistakes, some happens due to great play. I think that previous round's a bit of both, right? The gunfight wasn't necessarily perfect and clean, but neither was the crossfire from SSG. Overall, Eclipse had a beautiful way to take down the round, and SSG, they gotta figure out a way to close out these rounds, but more importantly, stay in it throughout the round because they have either a great start and they finish okay, or they have a terrible start and they finish. Oh, look how close this is.
Oh, but that's information that Skies has, by the way, so he knows somebody's down there. Hyper was mere seconds away from losing his life.
That he was. Very close indeed, gets away. NJR following him, so again, the body system being used from DarkZero time and time again, and I do want to give credit there because making sure that you have somebody nearby in case you get into a gunfight is always a preferred way of going down.
His role in attack hasn't exactly been as impactful, I would say, as he was on defense, but Pambazoo has had a remarkable performance so far in this matchup, making up for the fact that NJR and Hyper have been quite quiet. But I say that right as Hyper's grenade hits its mark, and the dominoes of Space Station, well, they've started falling. It just depends on how much space there is from one domino to the next. 2 bodies from SSG buried so far by DZ. Now, this is an aviator defense, so Space Station are still going to hold off the areas leading into the bomb site. Rampy positioned on main stairs. Sky's not too far away from him. So you need to have Hot and Cold be perfect on his coverage of the rest of the bomb site right now inside of Aviator.
You would, and we spoke earlier how SSG did not use the utility to clear up top main shield, and now DarkZero has shown us exactly how you do it. They used the floors, and now they're gonna march up this main stairs.
And there you go, Rampy dispatched, DZ just overwhelming them and trampling Space Station. Very little damage has been done to the DarkZero players. Hyper and NJR are still upright. And now the rest of DZ will head on in. Down goes Canadian, so there's still some life left in Space Station, but they're fighting for their lives right now. So it's match point for DarkZero if they come out ahead. As we said, SSG has not led just yet. They have trailed or been tied, and it looks like the tie likelihood not quite there. Sky's looking down below, but he'll have to turn his attention over towards Study as there's 3 bodies from DZ that know that they need to get that down. A nice shot from Skies. A beautiful set of shots, and he'll push on up with the pistol, but the diffuser goes down, and he's got 40 seconds left to try to clutch this one out. Very minimal HP, but time for a reload. Why not? He's just on a tiny sliver of it. But the diffuser down, and he's not getting out of there alive. Eclipse shuts the door, and DZ moved to map point.
What a nice try from Skies, to be honest, but the one thing that keeps me confused is it almost seems as if there's like one half of SSG that get into these fights early in the round, then they're down a player, maybe 2. Then the next person that falls in those 3 remaining players, they're just sitting on side waiting for stuff to happen, and when it gets to the 2 versus 5, that's when they try and lash back. That's when they try and look for an opportunity or an opening, and I feel like that's where DarkZero as a team, when they played on defense, they played much more together, and they chose when they wanted to find the opening, when they wanted to lash out. Whereas SSG's individual players, they fumble the ball, they don't get the kill, or DarkZero just finds 2 for the cost of 1, and thus are in the advantage point.
So many of these rounds are decided very early on. I don't feel like we've had a single round be 5v5 with 40 seconds left. The entry from both of these teams has been met with aggression right away. DZ, when they were on defense for the first 6 rounds of this map, they were all over the place, taking engagements where they saw fit. Panbazoo sometimes, NJR other times. It was Hyper to take the lead on a couple rounds as well.
Yeah.
And it might not have been the best for DarkZero because they only got 3 of the 6 rounds in the first half. But boy, oh boy, any aggression that might be there for Space Station on defense has not been up to snuff. That one clutch that Skies had is the only reason why we are still in this map, because it very easily could have been a 7-3 in favor of DZ. They are 1 round away, only 3 minutes away from stealing Space Station's map pick, and you know what? It might be his debut on the desk, but if that happens, C-Daps is going to look like a bit of a genius.
Wizard, one could say, and speaking of wizardry, have you seen the bomb site that we are currently on? It was mentioned earlier, nobody plays it, or at least not that often, and when they do, the stats are a bit inflated, but we are seeing SSG going downstairs to the library bomb site, and you can argue this. When a bomb site isn't necessarily very good, not very many teams play it, but what that also means is that very few teams get to attack against it. So you can almost say a bad bomb site is in some way a good bomb site simply due to lack of practice and not as much familiarity as you would with the other bomb sites that are stronger.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Small sample size means that if you're going to play it, there are 2 reasons why you're playing it. Either because you have what you feel is a rock-solid strategy, or desperation. And I gotta say, for Space Station, it might be a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but I think desperation is exactly what Space Station is feeling right now. They started off a bit flat-footed here in the first couple rounds. DZ didn't look that much better, but they capitalized off of it. Now, DZ look like the superior team all across the map, and Space Station so far on defense have been struggling really hard. When we swapped sides, we said DZ had the tougher job now.
Yeah.
And guess what? They've made us look like fools.
They have, and so does Force off Canadian as he gets taken down early on, and this is one of the slower opening kills as we are halfway through the round, but Panda with that yellow ping might have something to say about that, just not right. But look, there's an enemy close on his left. They do not know his whereabouts. He sneaked up all this way. He gets the shot and gets the trade off as well. Now it's back to a 4 versus 4 with 1 minute and 5 left on this clock. Both teams figuring out their next move.
Well, as we said, the team that gets the first pick has a 100% success rate. So That's something to keep an eye on for now. Skies is watching intently from above. Spacestation still very much in this fight, and they are punishing DarkZero quite handily right now. Every single piece of DZ failing to make an impact. Outside of that pick on defaults, there isn't really much to show for DarkZero, as Pambazoo now just bleeding out upstairs. He'll push through the smoke to try and take this engagement, but he gets absolutely smoked by Skies. Hyper now in a 1v4. What's he going to be able to accomplish? On attack, he's going to have to pick up that case, and he only has 20 seconds to do so. Spacestation looking to fight for their lives still, and that is a refrain that you will hear quite a lot. Boating time? Biding time? Just delaying the inevitable. What do you
time?
want?
They're waiting.
Well, I mean, is he wasting time? I can't really tell.
He can't
Hyper
find
right
his
now,
opponent.
is it delaying the inevitable? I suppose you could say a ring around the rosy, and Hyper picks up a kill for 6 kills and 9 deaths. Nice. Still doesn't matter. DZ losing out in the round. Spacestation quite strong through the first minute and a half of the round, and then the next 30 seconds ends up being extremely important. And they take a very important round.
Yeah, Skies was the one wasting time, by the way. Just want to point that out. Not Hyper. He was trying his very best to, of course, find the kill. Column A, rock solid strat. Column B, desperation. Now, I don't really get to choose which one, or necessarily share which one I think that was, but I will say that DarkZero did not look like a team that necessarily had a rock solid strat to go against this setup. It was Canadian, crouch walking around top main, got figured out by Fault, and then it was just shambles. DarkZero was all over the map. Panda pushed up long from 90. He found Fault in the trade back, made that a 4 versus 4, and then the pieces just kind of fell. And the curse has yet to be broken. Opening kill means round win. And, well, as long as SSG keeps getting opening kill, they will just, you know, take us to OT. And if DarkZero gets the opening kill, well, that'll be another round. Just like that. We don't even need to see the rest. Once that first kill comes out, we could just close our eyes and pretty much just pretend what happened.
Well, we said that they didn't look all that good, and the caster's curse comes into play yet again. The first half was 3-3 for those of you that weren't here for it, and we are on the precipice of that happening yet again. I think you can argue that second round on the second half, back in round number 8, that Skies clutched out on, was a miracle for Spacestation in order to keep them in this round. He played it very well, by the way. As we said, DarkZero kind of fumbled with their 1v1v1s, but was still around that in terms of pure numbers, and if they'd been maybe a little bit more disciplined in practice, could have easily walked out with the win on. But still the round goes into Spacestation's column, and then they have a dominant showing in the 11th round to prove us wrong and to quiet the haters and the dissenters. And it was on Living Room Library, as you pointed out, a bomb site that we had not seen up until this point. Every single bomb site now played. So Spacestation can go to any bomb site except for Living Room and Library. So where do they go? Well, they're going to go upstairs to Trophy and Statuary. It's the other bomb site that they prevailed on with that Skies clutch that we talked about.
Yeah, and this time around they're bringing out Bosco on the Kite, which means that these walls onto Triple Master, they'll be very hard to open up. Of course, DarkZero, they have the tools if they wanted to deal with it. Both the Twitch, the Flourish drones, they have 4 grenades, gone 6, Sophia vertical play. Brrr, they have everything basically, but they are choosing to go from the roam clear, go on to study side, and progress through the map. And so far, they're keeping track of who's down below, but they haven't sent any troops out there themselves. It's going to be a full horizontal take from top floor. Hot and Cold might just say hello on the main stairs in a brief moment.
These guys right now leading the team for Spacestation in terms of pure killing potential. The frags for DZ are still Pambazoo's. He's not really sharing with the rest of them, though Eclipse is also broken double digits. It's a good game for Canadian. This is the player that we highlighted at the start, who doesn't always show up on the scoreboard. His impact is often seen in what are referred to as intangibles, things that are not exactly tangible, aka a scoreline. There's no way he's going to walk away with this. The opening pick, Hot and Colds and Space Stations, as Hyper doesn't check his corners, and from right in behind, he goes down. DZ now trails with a minute left in the round.
DZ clearly not having any idea that Hot and Cold managed to creep up into Art, but Panda time and time again cleans up whenever someone falters. But if the curse is true, this means that that changes nothing, and Rampy right nearby might have something to say about that.
Excellent patience by Rampy now, but that pea shooter cannot do enough damage. Out comes the Deagle, but Pambazoo wants to get away as quickly as he can. His teammates falling in front of his very eyes, and now the smoke from Panda Not enough with the Deagle there in hand. Rampy secures. DZ trying to keep it close, but it's Eclipse again. Third time in this half that we'll see Eclipse in a 1vx position. He made it work one time, but his position given away, and Bosco will send him to the grave. SSG takes 3 on this half. Both halves, teams even. We have overtime to settle the score between Spacestation and DZ here in map 1.
Yep, and the opening kill shenanigans continues on to deliver. Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It was so funny seeing Pamba take the fight against Rampy downstairs in dining, and then they couldn't really kill one another, so Pamba just rushes up the Esther stairs, basically on side, gets smoked out, runs back down, finds Rampy, he has a deagle, he gets taken down, and Eclipse left in that 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3 situation like he has so many times prior on that Flores, and I feel so bad for him, Parker. I want to see Eclipse get in there as well, help his teammates, or at least maybe die with them, because he's just left in the trenches by himself, and it's always so hard. The Banshees, the Kite Claw on the wall, the Crossfire, the smoke grenades being thrown out, the Toxic Babes, it just doesn't stop.
Well, I like that you said the shenanigans of the First Blood, because so far, the first team, or the team to get the very first kill, wins the round 100% of the time.
That's crazy.
So if you get that very first pick, you're going to win the round. That will have to break at some point for these teams if they want to be able to secure a win here. That's it. You have to be able to come back, or you have to ensure that here in overtime that you're the team that's always going to get that first pick.
That.
But it's such a strong snowball that we see. You get that first pick, the teams immediately react to that. There were only 2 rounds where the trades came out right away. Outside of that, the team that gets the first pick either immediately repositions or looks for a follow-up right away, trying to extend that advantage that they've already given themselves. So something to keep in mind now as it's Space Station to start on defense. DarkZero will have 2 rounds on attack. They'll defend next. Right now, there is no favored side, so it does not matter at the moment. DZ obviously preferred starting on defense, which is why they chose it. But now here in overtime, it's Space Station's opportunity to do just that.
We are seeing a Dokkaebi from Eclipse. Now, I don't know if there's some like microphone rigged up somewhere, like if this thing is just shared with the players, but whenever we've been talking about someone 6-picking an operator, hot and cold in the buck, I want to get Eclipse off the flourish, join his teammates, what happens next? Well, they do it. So, how about this? Players, whoever gets the opening kill does not win this round. Just this one. You can continue on after, before, I don't care. This round, 6-6, first round of overtime, the opening kill team is going to lose. And now in the next 3 minutes, we'll see if this actually works. If not, then doesn't matter.
Is this you speaking something into existence? You are manifesting.
Yeah, because they can hear it. I say it, they hear it, they embrace it, they do it, and I want to see if it's true.
You are experiencing for potentially the first time in your career a real bona fide caster's curse. That's what this is. You say, well, you know, we've had a quiet game from Eclipse so far. And then he drops 10 kills in the next 3 rounds. You're like, okay, well, I mean, I guess I was wrong, and now I'm the one standing here looking completely foolish. So
absolutely. Kitchen, though. These teams love it. Both teams are bringing it out. And, of course, SSG, they found a little tiny bit of success. And the Maestro comes out all of a sudden. So the info with the Valkyrie as well, it kind of gets matched that SSG, they like the information. They work off of it.
Fultz on Maestro is...
banger.
He is extremely proficient on this operator. It's hard to misuse the Alda, I will say that much. And it is hard to position those Maestro cams in a poor way, but there's just something about this operator with Fultz that usually tends to make magic. Now, Fultz needs it. He's had a pretty lousy game thus far, and he desperately needs some either level of confidence or some contribution to his team that we are not necessarily seeing. There's plenty of counters for DarkZero to take out those Evil Eyes, though, the Twitch being a pretty large part of that, as you can zap it, open it up, and then punish a Maestro who's not being too attentive with those Evil Eyes. It sounds like the first Logic Bomb has gone off, by the way, and the only person who's taking any damage is on the team who used that Logic Bomb. Canadian walking away with only about 3/5, 2/5 of his health or so, just below 50%. And he misses out on an opportunity to punish Space Station's player creeping up to him on the doorway. That was Skies who wanted this. A desperation Nitro cell, but it does not connect.
Oh
Canadian
my God.
pushing from over towards the window, and he's good as gone. So the first pick technically goes out in favor of SSG, but all of these players falling all around. An absolute mess. No team with a clear advantage after that first pick except for Spacestation, then to clean up afterwards, leaving DZ in a 2v4 with Diffuser in hand. Just under a minute to go.
I would even go as far as say that Dokkaebi pick against the Maestro would have worked out great if DarkZero were the ones to find a stable ground and some kills for themselves as well, but that's not the name of this game. But Hyper now finds Skies in the basement, and 2 versus 3. I do want to confirm with the production who exactly got the opening kill, because I noted it as DarkZero, because Penba got a kill, but I don't know about the timing exactly.
That's what I was going to say. I thought it was Spacestation to walk away with it, but it was an absolute mess. It might have been milliseconds, but something we'll find out later on. It's desperate times for DarkZero now. Once again, Spacestation has not led here on Villa. They are just a couple kills away from doing that, and that couple becomes 1. The loneliest number, but Hyper might have an opportunity to be reunited with the rest of his teammates, and he will. Fultz on that. Maestro seals the deal, and it's map point for Spacestation.
Oh, the comfort perhaps in that Maestro. The gun is great, the gadget is great, and the gadget has now been changed to the point where if you have a Maestro on the board, and even if the Maestro falls himself, your teammates can now turn those bubbles.
Well, you were right. Panbazoo did officially get the very first pick, and guess what? For the first time all matchup, the team that gets the first pick loses the round. So you spoke it into existence, and here it is. I don't know if you have any kind of cosmic or divine power over what happens in the server, but it certainly seems like you might.
I'm not gonna say more. I'm just gonna watch what happens and talk only about what happens, and that will be the end of that.
What a time for 2 things that we haven't seen all map to happen. Number 1, Spacestation to take the lead in this map. Hasn't happened yet, happens that round. And it happens at the same time as the team that gets first blood loses the round. Still an overwhelming likelihood that if you get the first pick that you're going to go on to win the round, but of course, you can't say it 100% all the time. It's unsustainable. Still, that number usually hovers somewhere around 80%. So if you get that first pick, you are immensely favored to ultimately win it all. We'll see what happens now as DarkZero moves to defense. In overtime, there tends to be some consistency as to which side benefits. Right now, that was quite a stalwart defense from Spacestation. I imagine DarkZero will have an impressive performance when it comes to defending this Aviator Games bomb site.
I mean, there is literally no room for error now for DarkZero. It is not just overtime, it is overtime match point, which means if you fall one more time, that will be the last time on this map at least that you will hit the ground. So they want to make sure that they can do what they did previously on Aviation defense, that triple body system of main stairs, making sure that everybody's safe and comfortable, and of course, Hot and Cold is back on the floors, and if they can this time utilize their utility, utilize the drones to take down the shields and the strong positions, whether it be from the study side or from the master side, that is how SSG is going to solidify their position, because last time around, that was the 3 guys master side, it was Hot and Cold on the office balcony, Kids guys came over, and in that interim of that happening, DarkZero lashed out with the information that they had from the Yokai drones, which this time around will not be there for them. But they have Warden, so that's cool.
We talked about this Warden before, by the way, on Hyper, but it was a nice segue into the suits that we were wearing. In this particular case, what Warden brings to the table is an operator who can counter a lot of the utility-heavy lineups that Spacestation likes. Ying is an operator that you mentioned that has not shown up for SSG, but is an operator that is in their wheelhouse. In this case, Bosco brings 3 flashes, Skies has 3 flashes, as well as does Hot and Cold. And then there's grenades from both Fultz and Rampy, so tons of throwables that can go out. Now, if you're Warden, those nice protective glasses, they're not going to help you against a grenade that lands in your lap. But those flashes, well, you're going to be in a much better position. So Hyper surviving till the very end, he could potentially win his engagements simply because he tends to counter them out.
I want to see SSG rotate at least 1 player on study balcony. I do believe we just saw Hot and Cold at the edge of the screen making his way over, because you cannot push 5 players from a single angle. Hot and Cold finding himself outside of 90 window, could go in main door, could go study balcony, could of course just go on the rappel. With nothing to deny these walls from DarkZero, the vault wall will be opened, and this is how they're going to set up their plant, deny the vault position, and they can make their way into default. What does DC have in their pocket? Well, they have 3 toxic babes, and they have a C4 on Hyper on the Warden.
I really like that DZ is engaging here so strongly. Canadian wants to swing desperately on that opening inside of Vault. We talked about how we hadn't seen a match so far around where it comes down to the wire. Well, here it is, and DZ gets the opening pick, but it's answered back immediately by Fultz. DZ needs a couple more to stop this momentum, and there it may be. Hot and Cold falters by the map door. Diffuser being juggled on out. A default plant still in the works, but somebody from Space Station needs to retrieve it. Hyper swings onto the doorway, and Fultz goes and gets the pick, then starts dying to the gas. He doesn't see it. It's NJR credited with the kill. Space Station trailing in numbers, and it gets even more dire, but Sky's pulling off the diffuser with 2 seconds left. The Type 89 too much to control, and the 3 players from DZ stay alive to push us to a fateful 15th round between these teams.
7-7. We can go on. 7-7 is the score. We're at the very last breath of Villa. The final round of attack from SSG that we just saw, they did rotate study balcony. It was Bosco who ended up doing it. It was extremely late into the round. Canadian got the opening kill. He got traded back from Vault Wall. The trades came back and forth, and we found Kids guys in a 1 versus 3 simply just planting. I don't even think DarkZero necessarily knew that was going on, but they didn't need to because they found the kills, they lashed out together, and they had a man advantage of 2 players, which just makes it so difficult for Kids guys because yes, he got the bomb down, he got his statistics and all that, but a 1 versus 3 with nowhere to be is extremely difficult.
Well. I like how you read the situation for Space Station perfectly. They got the vault opened up. They wanted to go for the default plant spot, and they looked to exert their influence on the DZ players who did, in fact, peek that opening onto vault.
Yeah.
But DZ swung and wasted a lot of time. The toxic canisters that went out in the position where Fultz was playing off of just to bide their time. Skies did his job.
Yeah.
He got the diffuser down, but the rest of his team, who were on Overwatch, they fell one by one. And when it was a 3v3, it didn't work out so well for Space Station, and sometimes you just can't clutch up with those numbers as good as Skies might be. So with that said, Nick, guess where we are gonna go for Space Station's final defense in the final round of this map.
In fact, I love it. They won it previously. I would even argue it was the most successful round, not just on defense, but maybe even overall. It was like a 4 versus 1. They had everybody alive. Not much happened. DarkZero didn't really get very far into the map, and SSG didn't really show their cards onto the bomb side, and DarkZero as well did not really show exactly how they wanted to attack that bomb side because, to be honest, they just kind of died around the map. So both teams coming in, I would argue kind of neutral, but of course SSG has more comfort knowing they won the last time.
I mean, why not? You said that sometimes these bomb sites come out because you know that you have a strategy for it. Sometimes I said it's desperation. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily desperation for SSG, though. We have used the phrase do or die. This is literally the doest and the diest of all of the rounds, and I believe it was Shakespeare who actually said that in one of his sonnets. That said, you need to win this, so Space Station goes to the one bomb site that they have a perfect record on. And boy, oh boy, what a gamble that may be. They know something that we don't, and this is the confidence that Space Station can bring as a team. DarkZero will have to meet this task head on.
Yeah, the first team to get 5 kills wins the round. Albert Einstein, I'm pretty sure I saw on that one.
I believe, yes.
Very smart people, and they had massive influence, not just on the world as we know it, but of course the game that we're watching and that we are playing. SSG, they've been liking information. They're bringing both a bulletproof and the yokai drones. Hot and Cold, sitting tight on top main stairs, but we got the EE1D scanner up above. That's going to get some confidence back to DarkZero as they get a 3-2-1 countdown 3 times this round.
I like that desperation as a word comes up. We don't even mention the fact that there's a lion on the board being brought out for the very first time. SSG of 5 players. One of them is going to need to be a lion tamer right now against Canadian.
What are they doing with these charges?
They're juggling behind this shield that Hot and Cold has. He's still sitting on an ADS, it looks like, as he's just babysitting it. And Canadians advance while it's stopped by a yokai drone, and out goes a flash to try and slow down a push from DarkZero, or from Space Station.
This is the last E1D, and not much has happened with those. There's no stable ground, but it's sneaking in down below, I believe, as Hyper has found Domination, but Domination happens up above as Pamba finds Skies and gets traded back as Hot and Cold finds NJR.
DZ does get the very first pick in this round. They have all 3 so far here in overtime, and only 1 round that the attackers or the team that gets the first pick has lost came out against DZ. But they're on even footing right now, traded back so swiftly, so the advantage, quite minimal. Pambazoo's F2 finds his 17th pick right now through these 15 rounds. That's a remarkable tally. And down goes Fultz. Spacestation battling from behind, but they're still very firmly inside of the bomb site, waiting quite patiently. Hyper trying to take out one. He does so successfully against Bosco. Hot and Cold pops on up. A beautiful transfer. If you're going to have a big round, you're going to need it from Hot and Cold. He's not good enough for Hyper, though. And just like that, time runs out. They don't find the last player. Space Station, it might have been a war of attrition, but the clock is their 6th man. And literally down to the wire as Space Station squeezes out map 1.
What a heartbreaking way for DarkZero to lose that map. They have been doing great with the clock throughout this game, something they were criticized for by us and of course on the people on the desk, and they looked like it wasn't a problem this time around. And on the final round, 7-7 library attack, it comes down to the clock hitting 0, which sends us to the next map, but it was for the team that we thought, you know, looked like DC had it for a second.
Oh my, what a nail-biter of a matchup, by the way. We have seen these teams battle so many times. The last time they quarreled on Oregon in Stage 3, it was a blowout as Space Station crushed DarkZero 7-2. But if this map is any indicator, we are in for an electric showing between these teams. We still got 2 more maps to go. Coastline is up next. A very frag-heavy map that's seen some minor adjustments last season. Is that going to change how gun-heavy this matchup is? Because I gotta say, DarkZero's guns looked better throughout the entirety of the matchup. Space Station had a couple good rounds, but on a map like Coastline, DZ's map, we might end up seeing a 3rd map just based on what we saw off of Villa.
Absolutely. I mean, if Pampa shows up the way he did now with the frags alone, that was like 17, maybe 18 towards the end. That's huge, of course. With the changes to Coastline, I would say that it's still very, very gun-heavy. I think Coastline will always be very gun-heavy, but I would argue there's a little bit more depth now because you can't just hide on the roof, have a bunch of angles. They are a bit more restricted, but that doesn't take away from the fact that, yes, you are going to have gunfights.
Well, I mean, there's 15 rounds of action. I don't even know what part you would choose to focus on, but that's why I'm not an analyst or a host. But we have a team who want to break it down for you, so we'll toss on over the desk to hear their thoughts on map number 1 between SSG and DZ.
Welcome back to the desk, and shout out to Space Station Gaming, pulling it out in overtime, going up 1-0 maps on Villa with Coastline coming up next. But it's all about the clutch plays to the MVP this year.
They didn't have to make it this close. They really didn't. This was an opportunity for Space Station to show what they can do individually, and at the very end, it turns into that 3K. All of a sudden, Hot and Cold out of nowhere in Library secures the entire map, but SSG did find themselves on a back foot we didn't expect. A 3-3 half for DarkZero should have been where this was already done and dusted. It was drawn up in the green room. We didn't need to see SSG make this as close as it was, but DarkZero had ample opportunity to get back into this one, and when they did, DarkZero's roll finally got slowed in OT.
Yeah, I mean, as everything stands, DZ still put up a phenomenal showing on a map that they don't really play. Sure, SSG, they've whipped out the Villa in international play, but DarkZero, you never really see this side of them. And for them to go just toe-to-toe, swing for swing, all the way to max OT is very impressive, because now we're going on to their map of Coastline.
Yes, now C-Dubs, let's start things off with what happened at the beginning of the game, because there was a big ban from Goyo, and we didn't see a lot of them. What were your initial thoughts before we jumped into Villa?
Well, overall, I mean, we all know with SSG and their funky bans, we can see some fun things. You see the Finka as well as the Goyo, but overall, as it kind of all settled out, I almost say that DarkZero really embodied those bans just a little bit better, even though SSG were the ones to take the Goyo off the board. We still saw Panba on the Wamai playing those kind of in the not fun positions, we can say, in the power positions. He was still able to hold on, and overall it didn't have to change the entire philosophy of the DZ defenses.
I did like how a Thatcher ban from DarkZero essentially meant that Hardbridge was optional in a lot of cases. It's something that Eclipse switched to because of the role change in Stage 3, and it was something that they really only brought Mav in a couple of occasions. That was Canadian making a whole bunch of operator switches, and somewhere in there they decided a little bit of Hardbreach is a good idea, but Space Station also opened up the entire site every time. And because that there wasn't a Thatcher, if there was any wall that was Electroclawed or a mute was somewhere in the vicinity, it meant that is absolutely staying shut. On the flip side, we saw Spacestation ban Finka. Again, NJR and guys on DZ, especially Hyper, who's picked it up recently, they've pioneered what Finka looks like in North America after Latin America kind of took that operator in a stranglehold and said, we are forcing this into the competitive meta. Wasn't an option, and I honestly think a little bit more of that edge for DarkZero, if they had a Finka, would have meant they probably win this one if, again, we have a 7-7 scoreline and it just comes down to one
It
round.
was so close. It was one round.
I know,
still.
I
It
know.
was any man's map. But C-Daps, how did it feel to watch your boy from Challenger League, Panba, pop off, okay? I seen him on Twitch going crazy, double-digit kills. Panba was looking just great. We saw Pengu talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, Panba, he came out and played exactly how you would want out of him. Sure, as we saw with those kind of identity crises that we talked about ZZ, we already really brought it up and nailed it home during the pre-show, but as soon as he goes back onto the entry, he was getting aggressive. He was almost just acting off of intel from the rest of his team very well. It's like, hey, I can push up Classical and I can get a free kill inside of sight. And all of a sudden, those are massive plays that open up the round and really led to a lot of the attacking success of DZ.
Yes. Now, let's also take a look at the stats to see what happened because multiple players were popping off, and it wasn't just one. Let's take a look. And the one thing that comes to mind, folks ended up 8-12, and that's a big thing because he didn't start off too hot, Jacob.
He didn't. I think in 4 of the first engagements in this map, he was opening death, or first engagements, he also shared one of them with Rampy on round number 4. But again, rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4, he dies early. And when he's trying to work from an attacker point of view, that matters a lot. He's still probably one of the more revered, aggressive entry to second entry players we see in North America. And he had a really rough start. That idea of him being the opening pick only really manifested itself a little bit later when they switched to defense. But on attack, if you get SSG like a 4-2 start on Villa, you probably do that if he's alive for a little bit longer. 8-12, still not terrible, but I did think he woke up a little bit once the side swapped. It just might have come a little bit too late, and thankfully they didn't lose the map because of his slow start.
And Spacestation Gaming definitely needs folks to pop off early, especially on entry, from what we expect, from what we've seen all season long in the NAL. But you know who was awake the whole time? Hot Code, 15-10, man, 80% cost. The man was undefeated when it came to opening engagements, but also a big shout out to Panba, 18-10 with 5 opening kills and 0 opening deaths. Heading into map 2 now, okay. C-Daps, what are your expectations? Do you think DarkZero tries to climb back? Because they were your prediction. I got to put you in the hot seat for just a second.
Yeah, I also predicted that Eclipse was going to do well, and we haven't talked about that. He played phenomenal on the support roles.
Something DZ2
Yep,
start.
something DZ2 start. Maybe I messed up 1 digit. It's a 2-1 for them, especially because of how dominant DZ has been on that early round. As we kind of continue going through Coastline, opening pick matters even more than on Villa, and then we go to Clubhouse at the decider.
Hey.
Just simply getting that opening kill can define every single round as you go forward. So with SSG, that's a team that we typically say, hey, they're pretty dang good in the opening round. You have Houghton, you have Folds, you have Rampy, some of the most statistical, greatest players to ever play those aggressive early rounds. And they're getting shut down by DZ's game plan.
Now, talking about being shut down, we saw 2 MVPs go at it, Jacob. And you actually ran to the production room and said, I want this clip right here.
I did want this, yeah.
What was so special about it?
Because it's going to be relevant to how we play Coastline. It's the idea if DarkZero has some part about their game plan get disrupted midway through, them trying to recover and work around that game plan still might not work out. And on Coastline, because it's super frag heavy, stealth fight this is going to matter. So specifically, I'm talking about round 12. It's a super basic idea. DarkZero are upstairs, they're in Aviator, they're trying to clear towards Trophy. And we see Hot and Cold on a cheeky little roam downstairs in Art Room, and he kills Hyper all the way outside. If there is a replay of it, I do want to see it real quick just to get like a better illustration.
Oh, yeah.
But when we see it, he's roaming downstairs. No one accounts for him. And there's like on a map like Coastline, this is the kind of mistake that you can't necessarily make. So he'll stay down here. We see Canadian and the rest of DarkZero claim Vault, Aviator. They're trying to move south to north upstairs. Hyper is aware that there's probably somebody in the general vicinity, but he's not going to do a very thorough check of Art. And you probably don't anticipate someone like Hot and Cold to be playing this position, but here he comes perfectly, doesn't even have to break the barricade. Hot and Cold finds the frag, and now DarkZero's attention has to go towards clearing Hot and Cold. With only a minute remaining in the round, that's a pretty big priority shift to worry about with so little time left.
Now, Jacob, I know Christmas is around the corner, man. C-Daps, you actually had something
Yeah,
you
I
wanted
had
to
something
say.
to say. I want to talk about how that's another thing with SSG is that they're greenlit to go for these plays that can really just help change the round. It's like, okay, yeah, you have a 5v5. It's going pretty well for a DZ attack. All of a sudden, boom. hot and cold, opening frag.
It's
You're at
hot
a
and
4v5,
cold,
and it's
man.
like he's downstairs. What do we do? He can flank us any moment. It's living rent free inside the head of the attackers, where you don't know what is gonna happen.
It lives rent-free in the head of all of the NAO, by the way. But Jacob, you actually came to us with a two-piece when it came to content.
Yeah.
So there was something about operators.
So it's the role change that I keep talking about. It might be a little bit incorporeal to some people who don't know what Switch we're talking about. But for the first 5 play days of the North American League for Stage 3, DZ played a very particular way. Canadian came in, he played like on the soft support roles like he did back when he played on SSG. Eclipse was doing nothing but playing Sledge, and then we look at how this differs. They had a 30% attacking win rate and played as 1 through 6, and then on the latter half of the stage in the Sweden Major, it goes up because there's a drastic difference. NJR is the one claiming Sledge from Eclipse. Panbazoo plays in a secondary hard bridge role if he's needed rather than worrying about the frags nearly as much, and he can play crowd control operators like Lion. Hyper, he'll always be expected to frag. Eclipse, he's the one that moves on support. But look at what Canadian's playing. Capital, Yana, and of all people, Monty, what he's doing is he's playing an IGL, but he's doing it in a way where he can flex around, be in the thick of the fight, rather than being back on drones more consistently and having to like look at the world from just the view of cameras. You'd rather be in a position where you can be the guy to switch to whatever operator you need to play in the moment, and that's exactly how Canadian has decided he wants to utilize the pieces around him. He'll be the guy in the middle, like guys like Eclipse like play on the back, like the back line a little bit more, and what this is turning DarkZero into, you see, there is an increase in overall rounds won on attack. It's not very drastic, but in the NAL, that stat is actually from 30% to 71%. So against NA teams, that's a pretty big jump. We need to see more of this from DZ on attack.
Versatility is key, baby. But ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be about that time to jump into map 2. And with Spacestation Gaming on fire with a 1-0 win and heading into Coastline, let's see if DarkZero can kind of try to call them off. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming up next, map number 2. But before that, we have a small break. We'll see you on the other side.
What does it take to create the future of a gaming community? Join us on this 4th episode of I Call Next as we discover how to level up gameplay and reset the expectations of an entire league. PayPal, press play.
If you want to get better, try reviewing your game footage. Insights.gg's game capture tool makes recording and reviewing fast and easy. With no lag, automatic recording, and instant highlights, it's never been easier to learn from your gameplay. Try it for free at insights.gg today.
don't know how a second map is going to top what we just witnessed on Villa, Nick, coming down to the literal last second of the last round. But Coastline can often surprise us. Now, I have very fond memories of a particular Coastline map that literally refused to end. I don't know if you've ever heard of this one, but anyway, before we get there, this is going to be a great matchup between these teams. This is DarkZero's map. What are your expectations after seeing how close map number 1 was?
I would say that if anything, I would expect a banger of a game, seeing as how the first map went. I think DC put in more pressure, more aggression, and much more gunfighting than I would have expected at first. And not only that, but the young Panbasu, will he keep his momentum as a young player going into the second map, or will he fall off because he went absolutely nuclear on Villa?
L plus ratio plus no one asked plus you fell off.
Okay.
At Pambazoo
Okay.
on Twitter. Do me a favor, if you're watching, send him that and say, Intero made me do it. That said, Pambazoo had an exceptional performance in the very first map, almost single-handedly carrying his team on a number of different rounds. He needs to show up the same way, but not so much Pambazoo, the rest of the team for DarkZero. You had a quiet game from Hyper.
Yeah.
You had a quiet game from NJR. They didn't play poorly, but by their own standards, they should have been significantly better. Thank goodness that Eclipse and Pambazoo showed up for you. Strategically, both teams seem to have their moments and seem to suffer from some bobbles. Now we'll get into map number 2 of Coastline with the operator bans coming into effect. And you said, oh, when you saw the Maverick ban.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about this. The Kite is arguably a very obvious ban here. When you get the Thatcher off the board and the Maverick, it makes that outside VIP wall, that is now reinforceable by the way, very difficult to go through. So banning out the Kite makes it easier again. And you follow up with the Valkyrie, which of course is a staple on Coastline due to those outside Valkyrie cameras, which can still be placed, as the change to the cameras not being able to be put outside for more than 10 seconds did not go through this particular patch. So Valkyrie still very strong and would still be played probably most rounds if she was allowed to go through, but she was not.
We saw the sheer impact that Valkyrie had as well, played by Spacestation in just the earlier matchup, and one of the operators that was eliminated in the very first map, banned out by Spacestation, is going to be used immediately by Spacestation, and that's Finka. Hot and Cold is in so many ways the 6th pick / flex support for this team. He's going to roll with Finka right off of the bat. How many operators has Hot and Cold played now at this point? By my tally, 7 or 8 through those 15 rounds, which is quite an impressive showing for a player who does tend to stand out on this team.
Top of my head, I was going to go 7 as well, including the Finka now. That would be 7, I believe, but who knows? Very impressive from him, and of course, them banning it, now bringing it, meant that it was a map-specific decision. It's not like they don't want to play the Finka. It's not like they hate the Finka. It's just that for Villa, they weren't about it. They want to bring it now instead. We're starting on Kitchen. It is DC once again finding themselves in the starting side of defense, which for this map is typically the opposite of Villa, where attack is typically favored. But of course, it all comes down to how do you attack, how do you defend, and who gets the opening kill. Those things are the questions that we must ask ourselves, because they matter oh so very much, especially in this game in particular.
Twitch, the operator that was being brought out by DarkZero, now in the hands of Spacestation on Skies. Nothing really outside the norm for DZ's lineup here, other than the Oryx, which, by the way, like I've said, Oryx, we got to see a lot of Oryx play in Sweden on Coastline, and we were both immensely critical of Oryx's contribution. One of the things that is a major benefit is that this isn't a particularly vertical-heavy map, but there are a couple hatches that an Oryx can leap up sight unseen. Additionally, you can rotate through Coastline very quickly. Oryx is the fastest operator in the game, so if you need to get somewhere, you're going to go quick, like to the grave, by the way, because Space Station just killed 3 players from DarkZero in the first 50 seconds. And it's
Speaking
Canadian.
of fast.
Yeah, I mean, this one, they're...
It's right, Canadian has this. 1 versus 5. If there's anyone to do it, it's the OG in-game leader, captain for his team. Swings VIP hall, doesn't find any on the roof. The vertical happens, and all of a sudden, Ramp is on the ground. But what happens after that? Does SSC say, oh, he's up above, we're gonna go down below, plant the bomb on site. Canadian, now he's got the vertical holes, but there aren't that many in his favor. And, I mean, what can he do? He has one impact in his hand, he can make a hole, but that will be the end of that as he gets shot from across, but even that player over there has also dropped below.
Diffuser being planted, and both of the grenades, the smoke grenades, been tossed out by Skies, whose now objective play is good. Space Station managed to get down 3 diffusers in the 4 diffusers.
Yeah.
Sorry, during the Villa matchup, which is quite an impressive number through the 7 rounds that they had. We'll make it 5 for their trouble, and the very first round goes in favor of Space Station. A little fun fact for you. I love fun facts. I love them.
Don't do it, Parker.
On the Villa matchup, Space Station did not gain the lead for the first time in the match until round 13. They either tied or trailed DarkZero the whole way until they needed to end up winning those rounds the most. Well, on Coastline, they're on attack on a presumably attacker-favored map, and they've already taken the very first round, and they've got their first lead far faster than they did on Villa.
Yeah. Do you want to hear another fun fact, which I thought was the fun fact you were going to bring up?
Give me it.
SSG, they got the opening kill, and they got the opening round.
Yes.
So that's
happening again.
Well, it's the first round, so I don't want to draw any conclusions yet. But I do think maybe NGR wants to do some reconstruction. He brought the castle. It's a penthouse bomb site defense. I think that makes perfect sense. Penthouse is a bomb site where you want to close off some angles, open up some new ones, and in a perfect world, I think a lot of coaches would say, hey guys, let's bring the mirror for this one. But then again, we also know how efficient SSG they are with the buck, especially in a map such as Coastline. So maybe they thought, the mirror, even though it is open, it's not going to do that much work for us. We don't want to risk it. They can open them from below, which is going to bite us in the butt. We're just going to bring the bare minimum, the castle, the Goyo, and the Wamai. Pambasu is still on the Oryx, the fastest operator, as you mentioned earlier, which the only thing that was actually fast last round was how quickly DarkZero fell to the grave. So let's see if Pambasu can maybe break a wall or two, or maybe find a kill or two this round.
I will say this. I have watched a lot of Rainbow Six Siege.
Really?
I know this might not surprise you.
Okay.
I've watched a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, and I cannot, for the life of me, recall any match where I thought to myself, hey, wow, that Oryx on Coastline is really good. Every single time when Dan on Empire was running an Oryx here on this map, every single time I just kept thinking to myself, there's something that I don't know. This is wasted potential. There are at least 3 other operators I can think of that would fit with this lineup better than what an Oryx brings. Now, maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's done for site rotation or site setup, and I'm just simply not seeing it. That's entirely the case. But I have yet to be convinced. So I say to you, DarkZero, convince me. Convince me, Pambazu, as to why Oryx is the right pick here.
I mean, not a bad thing to say at all. And honestly, I've played a fair bit of Siege in my time, and I'm on the same terms where Oryx is a bit of a overrated operator in my opinion as well. I rarely go, oh my god, that play was only doable by him.
Did you just say overroided?
Yeah,
How dare you shame him?
I kind of ended up with 2 different
it's just supplements,
in my mouth.
It's just supplements, man. First pick, by the way, is going to go to Space Station. Upside down Repel, and Hyper was in a position where he was trapped behind that bar upstairs. And, well, Space Station are just speed running this map. Through these 2 rounds, they're dominating in terms of kills, but Canadian has been the one standout performer. He has all of the kills for DarkZero, which, for the record, is 2. Not a very high tally. But he's going to need to get a little bit more. Pambazu won't be able to find the board. NJR still has a hope and an opportunity. Space Station closing in on the bomb site. All the action seemingly occurring over in hookah and billiards, but the focus from Space Station has to be over on Penthouse and Theater. And Nitrocell from Canadian, he's the standout performer right now, but are these impactful kills? Well, it's hard to tell, because this is still a potential lost round for DZ.
I mean, they'll be very impactful if they manage to take those 2 kills into a round win, but there's still 2 versus 3 with Canadian very low on health as well, but the castle might now come into play as this castle barricade gives them some sort of cover, and they can also break it as it is prepared for them. Bottom right, you can see that on the castle barricade there. 1 punch, or maybe 2, should break it. Shield as well, maybe covered by a disc if they're lucky. Means only 30 seconds left. This means DarkZero in a stable position.
DarkZero have doubled up on where they're sitting as well, both looking towards the pretty telltale bomb site of B. No way to deny this whatsoever. Skies will repel on in pre-firing, and now he's in a default spot. Finka Burst goes out as well. Grenade toss to do some denial. Hot and Cold marching onwards, waiting for those silhouettes to appear. NJR pivots, and he knows where the diffuser is. A nice shot, and they've evened things apiece, though NJR taking some substantial damage in the process. Still the Finka boost going, and the overheal for SSG could prove quite good. Canadian will edge out towards Bosco. Shoulder being seen. Bosco capitalizing off of that, and it's NJR against the world. A 1v2. Diffuser at the halfway point. Bosco picks up both those final kills. Spacestation up 2-0.
My one advice to DarkZero that round will be if the Kite is spent, the Maverick is spent, the Thatcher is spent, maybe bring the Mute. And we spoke about, I mean, how do you bring a Mute? Well, there's only 5 operators on a lineup, and they already got their 5. Well, you do play the Oryx. We could go off the Oryx, maybe onto the Mute, or even a Bandit if you want to have a better gun. Get a denial on that VIP wall. Make SSG work for it. Force him to go down below into kitchen. Maybe have a roamer there. Kill a drone or two. And then at least you gain something where, yes, they want to get the wall. Now you gotta set up a problem to solve. And then they gotta work on it. They gotta send the people, send the drones, solve the problem. And then they can breach the wall. Whereas they could just send Kits guys all alone on VIP repel. He could breach the walls single-handedly with no problem. And then 3 or 4 players of SSG can just collectively together work on that hookah side of the map and find 2 kills for themselves, meaning that they're working overtime everywhere on the map. You want to make sure, if you are defending, to try and cause problems to slow down your attacking foes, and that's not what DarkZero has done so far in this match. Castle was a nice try, but there was no way for them to deny the planter because no C4, no toxic babe, so once Kids Guys rabbled in, it was all but done.
Did you just call him Kids Guys?
Kids Guys. That's his
At
name.
Kids Guys.
At
on
Kids
Twitter.
Guys.
No way
And
you're
OG.
referring.
Yeah. Back in my day, he was called Kids Guys.
You can't just refer to him by his Twitter handle. It doesn't work that way.
Alex, you know, I can call him Alex with a type like that. Albert Einstein.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, so far, Space Station on their entry, magnificent, and the pattern is still holding. So far, through all of the rounds that have been played between these two teams today, going back to round number 1 on Villa, the team that gets the opening first pick wins all the rounds, except for one. There was one time, just one single round.
Watch this. The team that gets the opening kill this round will lose.
Oh.
Wait.
Oh, dear God.
I'm gonna wave my hands.
Okay.
There. Now it's been manifested. It's been spoken into reality. It's just a matter of time. 2 minutes, 23, 22, 21. And as that timer ticks down, so does the curse. Opening kill engagement is right around the corner. It's between Panbasu and Rambi, which means they will show us who will be the loser based on who gets the kill.
Panbazu's still on this Oryx play, by the way, that we talked about so frequently. A grenade goes off, and hey, I guess the T5 hits its mark. DarkZero getting the very first pick, and just like that, using his dash to get out of there, Panbazu will cover a lot of ground very quickly. 1 minute off of the board, and it's Fultz down and out. Now, those grenades from Yana can be quite impactful, as with the Geminis to scout ahead. So that's a piece of utility from Space Station that they will be without for the remainder of this round.
Yeah, you get some Oryx value, you know, he got a kill, he did some things, now he's making his way through the map, could go up a hatch, but not yet. It's too early, it's too soon, but Rambo will start doing some vertical damage control down below, which means that SSG are setting up throughout this round for what looks to be like a stock bathroom take right now, by the looks of this.
The good news is that if you're SSG, you still have plenty working for you. DZ, of course, have that numbers advantage, so they're in a good spot, though Eclipse might have been droned out inside a main lobby. If that's the case, it could be relatively easy for Space Station to isolate him and punish him, unless there's a crossfire established somewhere that we simply aren't seeing. You talked about how teams like to sit at the skylight and be able to hold rotations. Well, that's exactly where Skies is. A nice pickup from Eclipse, but he's immediately ended by a grenade tossed out by Hot and Cold. Still the advantage in DZ's favor with a minute to go.
Yeah, it's looking actually okay for both teams here. If SSG can find 1 kill from verticality, I would say they're in a great spot, but if they can't, if NTR stays hidden in this position, which he does not, Rambi finds it, cast the curse, it's real in this one, and that is now SSG arguably in the driver's seat as DC has no side control.
And there's no skeleton key ammo as well left for Rampy, so the soft destruction that they had at their disposal is now gone. Sight control was something that DZ lacked. Well, guess what? They're going to look to retake. Leaving Panbazoo in this floating position, but his legs exposed, and Rampy doesn't need a skeleton key. He's got the C8 just powering away. Pistol out and on the ground, he can't tell as both players from DZ look over in the same area. Hyper's engagement falters with 10 seconds left, and Canadian will need to hustle his way back to the bomb site. He's very far off. 7 seconds left in this round, and Skies will be able to get the diffuser down. Coverage from Bosco as Canadian cannot get to the bomb site in time, and it's 3 for 3 on diffusers. With a hope and a prayer, DZ will look to try to win the round, but there's too many angles from Space Station, and they're up 3-0.
Two things I want to take away from that round. First of all, it looked like a pink blue bar defense from DarkZero because they had such big priority on those particular area of the map that I thought either they had diffuser down there somehow or they genuinely thought that was the bomb site. It wasn't. It was kitchen stock. Second of all, I would like you to tell me, Parker, if you do remember, who got the opening kill that particular round?
I believe it was a man named Panbazoo on DarkZero.
Who won the round?
I believe it was Space Station Gaming.
What does that mean?
It means that you were right.
Isn't that incredible?
It's incredible.
It's absolutely incredible.
We choose our own destiny here.
That we do.
In this wonderful city of Los Angeles, the city of angels, we get to choose miracles, and your miracle was to correctly call who got the round, which I think is a very odd use of that, but at the same time, I'm not going to judge it.
I mean, there are these things that, like, Siege has been a big part of my life growing up, especially in my, I say growing up when I was 18, but I was pretty immature for 18 years old, so growing up, and it still is, so using your wishes where something is done good for you, want to do some good back.
And you know what some kids might be wishing for this year, Nick?
What?
To get the Space Station Zero cosmetic in their inbox from old Santa Claus, or whichever cosmic, religious, spiritual, festive being delivers gifts. I don't care. We're not.
You know what?
I don't care.
You know what
who
I believe in?
To be honest, but what I was saying is that it's the festive season. Maybe you want that skin. DarkZero has a skin in the game, by the way. It's available on Nomad's weapon, so you can go and get that if you want on the ARX.
And I am, technically speaking.
Technically speaking.
I believe in something else, though. I believe in blitz supremacy. And that is something that Skies, of all people, are bringing out on Coastline, of all maps, on a blue bar, pink bar defense.
I know that we haven't seen it used in a while, but you remember the days fondly of the shield operators paired with Finca. It's like eating a nice rich cheese with a Pinot Noir, Nick. They just pair together so well, and I know that we don't see it all that often. DZ is a team that knows shield operators inside and out, by the way. Yeah. Mint, the coach, used to be one of the best shield players in the world, so I don't know if they're going to be prepared for what Skies can bring, but I will say, and I don't want to dampen your hopes, shields have not had the same impact over the last 6 to 8 months of Rainbow Six that we are used to having. So we can be all excited for the freight train of pain that Skies is going to bring, only to be let down.
I'm just very curious what the thought process is. Not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just very curious because this is like what we can call an original situation. It's not something that we see ever, especially not on Coastline, and not from SSG, not from Kid Skies himself, or Alex Skies, whichever term you want to use, one of the great smoke players out there, whichever. Canadian on the mirror, barricading this door, wanting to make sure that there's no flanks coming through, which indicates that, of course, that SSG is looking for an office, penthouse, or kitchen take, which, if you were to assume that, Canadian, you would be right. They are finding themselves primarily on the office and security side of things. Oh, and as Skies greets with the ADS, not knowing there's a person watching the fallback for his teammate, Panbazoo gets the opening kill for his team, and that is DC.
Did you not talk about the opening pick not necessarily winning you the round? Does that magic continue onwards because for 2 rounds in a row, Panbazoo has been the one to get that opening pick? And DZ will continue to capitalize off of that as there's another player from Space Station to go down. That Blitz experiment is not going to happen, by the way. A 3v5 for Space Station. Very short-lived, yes, indeed. But DarkZero in the driver's seat, and they look to get even more from it. That's Eclipse to take down Rampy. And DarkZero are just cleaning up shop against Space Station, who are just helplessly wandering into their line of sight.
Yeah, I think that's a good term, like wandering, a little bit lost maybe as well, because it just seems like they're not sure exactly where to strike, where to hit, but InnerJar hits his shot, and this nade will not do much, as InnerJar just swings the round with a shotgun in his hand. Flawless round, the first flawless round in this entire series.
And that is absolutely correct. Now, the numbers that we are looking at, if you are crunching those numbers, Space Station, through these 4 rounds that we have seen, have gotten the diffuser planted all 3 times that they went on to win the round, which adds to the 4 rounds on Villa that we saw. So, of the rounds that were played so far, Space Station have played 11 rounds of attack, and they have planted the diffuser 7 times. That is a remarkable feat. That is significantly higher than we see from almost every single team. There are very few teams competing at this level that are as objective focused as we have seen Space Station thus far, and it's very obviously a coordinated effort for them to get in and plant the diffuser. It's not a reactive play. This is something that is thought out. This is premeditated. So that round in particular for DZ, they blunt their advance. It looks like Space Station gets a little bit cute with their operator lineup. They go for more fragging power, maybe to overwhelm DZ. It doesn't really work out. I wouldn't be surprised to see SSG go back to what's been working, go back to a more structured play, try to get the diffuser down and hold map control while doing it.
I am very curious if maybe SSG had this thought in their head that if they could just get to that bomb plant situation in the round, the late end of that round, if they could just kind of walk in with the blitz shield and get into a safe area, then proceed to plant, because other than that, I'm not entirely sure what was going to happen. But I do agree, both in Villa and as we've seen so far on Coastline, 3 out of 4 attacking rounds so far, all the 3 they have won, they did indeed plant. And it's a mixture of, DarkZero, they're not really playing necessarily like on the bomb site. We saw that on Penthouse, they were far back in 90 hallway. We saw it on Kitchen, where they were in blue bar with 3 people. But I will say, yes, they're playing for it. It's premeditated, and you can tell from very early on in those first 3 rounds that they had a plan, and that plan was to plant. And often in Rainbow Six Siege, when you do plant the diffuser down, it is very, 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 very likely that you will win that round, because those... Oh my lord.
Oh, 3 rounds
Lord.
in a row. We were critical of the Oryx play, by the way, and at this point, it looks like it's the gun and the sight that Pambazoo is playing off of. You got T5, you got the 1.5, you get the kill, you immediately dash away. That's literally what Pambazoo is doing and how he's playing this out. I have not been impressed with the utility play of Oryx, mostly because there isn't a ton of utility to show off. But the gun is what Pambazoo is thriving on. He might only be 3-3, but all 3 of those kills were to give his team a numbers advantage, and the conversion rate for DarkZero right now at 50% could stretch upwards to 66 should they prevail after that very big pick on the hot and cold.
And that's certainly true, and I did ask the question, is Pamba gonna keep thriving as he did on Villa and take that momentum with him into the second game? And he had a bit of a slow start, but it's really starting to slowly ramp up. And speaking of ramping, Rampy using Bog down below is like a doctor. The precision, the experience, it just shines through. But look at Foles on these blue stairs. Oh,
well,
he's gone.
I mean, you can look at him, but now he's dead. So you'll have to look at him and his grayed out health bar on the left side of your screen. DarkZero have seemingly stopped SSG's aggressive entry into the map and are meeting them full force. This is very similar to what we saw on Villa, is that you take chances and you swing early based on the intel that you have. Your opponent is not ready for it. It's actually quite interesting to see the way that these teams really do balance each other out, because so far they've been reading each other's strengths and weaknesses quite well, and because of that, it's allowing them to gain an upper hand in situations that present themselves, just like when you see Eclipse step out of line and get slapped away by Rampy. 40 seconds left in this round. DarkZero still has the lead, but there is a potential for SSG to get a pick here and even things out.
Yeah, I would say that this time it's kind of in reverse, where DarkZero in the driver's seat, they got the angles, they got the mad advantage, and they got a bulletproof for information. So, no diffuser in hands of SSG on side, as Skies is down below now. Now making his way to the big window rappel, but it's a little bit too late. 4 versus 2, no health to be had.
Ooh.
Hyper finds a nice shot. Skies last man staying on the rappel, but Penba continues the headshot madness.
Almost another flawless round. Yes. A single pick was all SSG could muster in that round. And you go from the first 3 rounds being largely Space Station dominance. They get the opening pick twice. They get the diffuser planted all 3 times. They look like they are trying to go out of this in a hurry and seal the deal in a 2-0. But then guess what happens? Pambazoo catches fire. He was good in round number 3, but not good enough. He gets the opening pick in round number 4, stays alive. His team ends up winning the round. Does the same thing here, gets 2 very high-profile picks while holding a key component just off-site, watching the window inside of VIP, and he has been the real standout performer through both maps now at this point. When DarkZero picked up Panbazoo, they picked him up from what I think a lot of people in our community would consider to be obscurity. But they saw something in here that they thought could be developed, that could be cultivated into a top-tier performer, a world beater, and his performance in fragged on Villa with 17 kills through those 15 rounds. Now he's got 5 through 5 rounds, so he's just performing above 1 kill a round, which might not seem like a lot, but in Rainbow Six Siege, that's incredibly impressive.
That is very impressive, and most importantly, it also speaks to consistency. It's not necessarily, it is hard, but it's not as hard to be good for one round as it is to be pretty damn good almost every single round. And having consistent throughput in each and every given round also means that you have a stable in your team. And every single team relies on that one player to do that for them. It can be a support player, it can be an injury, it doesn't really matter, but stability is key. And DarkZero, as an organization, as a team, they're not afraid of investing into young, unproven talent. NJR, sure, he was a hot shot coming to NAL, but he was young, didn't have that much experience. Panbazoo gets taken off with a hot nade from Hot and Cold, also a player looking very hot, who is thriving so far. But thriving is SSG, 3 kills on the day, and they're storming through Kitchen.
Oh my goodness, this is just the fields upon which they reap. And a flawless could be in the cards, as Hyper will be the only player left from DZ. And boy, oh boy, he sees Rampy and just manages to make it work. It was a bit sloppy, 26 bullets required, but he still gets the job done. He's got a lot more to do. 4 more bodies from Spacestation. Utility to spare, flashes, grenades still on the board, smokes as well. 1 Adrenal Surge remaining. You still got all the hard breach from Bosco as well. Diffuser being planted by Skies. Will Hyper be able to get there in time? No. And the diffuser technically didn't get planted either, but I mean, you could still give it to them because it was on as close to 0.00.
Nope.
It doesn't count.
Nope.
But it's close. The first half is in the books now, Nick. 4-2 in favor of Spacestation. This is a graceful recovery after they had lost a bit of momentum through that 3rd to 4th round, and then those 2 from DZ, nearly 2 back-to-back flawless rounds from DarkZero. Really impressive stuff, but what does Spacestation do to turn it around and conquer that 6th and final attack of theirs?
I mean, honestly, SSG now on the side swap, they will now need to move into, what shall we say, coordination. I think the way they played their attacks is how they should try and approach their defenses as well, because it was pretty much a night and day difference from Villa, where it seemed kind of disjointed on their defenses and they were swinging solo and didn't find much success, where DarkZero looked like they had that cohesion and teamwork in the body system. I want to see SSG take 2 players back to back and just say, we're going to make our way over here, we're going to find some opponents, we're going to see if we can fight them, and if we can't, we're not going to challenge too much, but if we can fight, we will hold our ground. And I think DarkZero, in reflection of that, did a very good job in that area. Now SSG, it is Coastline. You need to fight for the map, you need to fight for the ground, and you need to figure out exactly where that area on the map is. It doesn't have to be in the same location every single time for each specific bomb site, but you do need to choose the area that you care about the most outside the bomb site.
With that explanation done and the first half done, let's take a look back at what transpired over those 6 rounds. The first half scoreline obviously on your screen, 4-2 in favor of Spacestation. Starting on what many would refer to as the advantageous side here in the Spanish map of Coastline. With that, they didn't get it in the final round, but they were as close to planting a diffuser as was humanly possible. Spacestation were able to confirm 3 diffusers planted and picked up 3 of the 6 first bloods. DarkZero picked up 3 of the first bloods as well, and also got a flawless round to boot, though Spacestation came very close to 3 flawless rounds of their own, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, as we say time and time again. First pick now on defense for Spacestation goes in their favor, and out goes Hyper on that Yana, a pivotal operator. Like we said before, when Spacestation lost Yana early, you lose out on the Geminis, you lose out on a good gun, you lose out on grenades. That can be a pretty big hole to find yourself in.
Yeah, but thankfully DarkZero running both the Finca, so Gun 6 2 grenades, Asset's 2 more grenades, and Canadian is on floors as well. There is no lack of soft breach utility from the side of DarkZero, which means Hyper, he can rest down below, sit in the camp the entire round, and his teammates can still clear out this shield, and so they do. But
Lots of destruction, like you pointed out, is a good thing.
where do you go from here? You don't have a hard breach, so these walls that are reinforced into Hookah Lounge, they will stay reinforced throughout the entirety of this round. Typically, this is where you use the Hibana or the Ace to get an angle up onto those walls to apply pressure onto side. Get on that big repel onto pool table, get on the Hookah window repel as well. But no, it's just a door, and what are you gonna do here? You can't just walk in.
Toxic canister burned early from Bosco. Still about a third of the round left. DZ want to break on in, but they don't know exactly what that next move is. I guess NJR just walks in, by the way, and he pulverizes Bosco. And another as well on the skies. What a play! DZ commanding control and demanding respect from Spacestation as SSG
But the
fights
diffuser!
their own way to fight back. The diffuser still down, as you are pointing out, and it's picked up. Rampy unable to get back to the bomb site. Eclipse shuts him down. Fultz will need to be the one to stop this. And a beautiful shot onto Eclipse. It's Pampazoo versus Fultz, and it's Pampazoo to win it out. This boy has been on fire all day, and a potential 5-2 scoreline for SSG. Not in the cards. It's 4-3. Still Space Stations, but a triumphant start on attack for DZ.
I don't understand what I just witnessed. Diffuser is outside of Hookah, bottom balcony, is outside of Pink Bar essentially. Nobody picked it up from DarkZero. NJR walks in, gets 2 incredible kills, great flick into the guy playing inside of Vase, and then they all fall, they trade back and forth. It comes down to a 1 versus 1 because Pampa has to go back outside the bomb site, pick up Diffuser, go back into the bomb site. And of course, he ends up getting around, but what on earth is happening? There's no hard breach, they walk in, and it's just a chaos. Nobody on big window repel either. It's just gunfights and gunfights and gunfights, and, well, I guess you did say it, Parker. It's all about fighting your opponent on Coastline and fighting both DarkZero and HSGR at full effect, and this bomb site Penthouse is no different because, once again, it's all about getting into those gunfights. SSG bringing a mute. That's the one criticism I had for DarkZero when they played Penthouse, so very happy to see them do it. This now means DarkZero will have to go below or throw a pretty nice nade to get rid of it.
I just can't believe the cojones on NJR to just walk into the middle of the bomb site, by the way. Just walked in.
Literally.
You spent all that time setting up a defense, and he just walked in. That's it. And NJR with those 2 huge picks cracks the whole bomb site open. And like that, DZ are able to steamroll SSG through the remainder of the round and take it. The site rotation, now that we are in the midst of round number 8, has been quite fascinating to watch. First, all 4 bomb sites have been played so far here on this map. Kitchen has been played twice. Hookah has been played twice. Penthouse now has been played twice. Double bars played once. This is a fascinating rotation that we are seeing come out from these teams, and that was part of the desire of the developers when they changed this, was to bring a bomb site like Penthouse Theater back into the meta, and with the fact that it's been played the same as almost every other bomb site, leads you to believe it's viable at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it shows 2 things. 1, great rework from Ubisoft, of course, and 2, the depth that both of these teams go to in their prep and in their practice as they choose to have all 4 bomb sites as a preference for themselves. Of course, Bar getting the least of it, but Penthouse being brought up at the line of the top played bomb sites. Flashbangs, nades go out, clears the shield and the ADSs. That's very nicely done. The jammer, of course, on that double reinforced wall will have to go next. Otherwise, they're going to be stuck outside, and this time we do see Hibana being played.
You talked about that hard destruction, how pivotal it is.
Oh, that's smart. They're going to make a small hole like a Maverick, then nade through it probably, instead of just, yeah, this jammer here should be cleared.
Wait to see if they can do anything with it. Grenade gets tossed on out, and it's immediately shot away. So a swing and a miss. Bosco very wary of what to do next, and he has no leap through. He might be playing to die at this point, and if he goes down swinging, he'll see who he can bring with him. Halfway point of the round. Space Station sitting comfortably right now outside of Bosco. As for DZ, they're at full HP. They've got adrenal surges as well to boot should they want to use them. There they go, Eclipse. First one goes off, give a bit more staying power to the rest of the team as Bosco is trapped in this position. We've talked about it now before, but it doesn't look like all of those X-Kairos went off, by the way. That jigsaw piece on the wall might prove to be DZ's downfall if they can't get into the map.
That is one of the most heartbreaking moments when you're an attacker, when the breach is open and you can basically walk right through. But the jigsaw puzzle, it creates this nasty situation where I don't think you're going to be able to fit inside, which means it's only an angle.
Oh, DZ gets that opening pick. These teams neck and neck as to who can claim the first blood. Down goes Bosco. He's a superhero for this team, but he has not had the impact that I think he wants on this particular map. The lead for DZ will grow. 30 seconds left, and Fultz gets spotted. A nice set of eyes on NJR as he sees the head of him. SSG being punished all across the map. Requires Rampy to get back into the bomb site as he runs on up. A nice shot on the Hyper and pivots around the deployable shield and the alibi decoy. Down goes Rampy to Panbazoo. A double kill again, and Skies will not be able to clutch out. It's a tie game between these two teams.
It's interesting to look at the dynamic difference, right? DarkZero clearly playing for kills. Nobody in Big Window Repel, nobody in the roof to drop the bathroom hatch, didn't open up the soft wall inside of VIP to enable the plant. They were simply saying, we got the numbers, we got more guns, we're gonna find where the defenders are and take them out. Where SSG, even in that 4 versus 4, 3 versus 3, they're clearly playing for a different task as they want to get the bomb down as much as possible.
It's kills versus control.
Yeah.
Is what it really boils down to here.
Objectives, yeah.
And DZ as a team are very proficient at getting kills. We highlighted NJR, we highlighted Hyper. We've talked about Panbazoo enough to last us the rest of the year, which is only,
Not much left.
It's only a couple weeks, by the way.
That's crazy, actually. When like December, yeah.
Thoughts on saying on December 30th and December 31st, thoughts on saying, see you next year? Yes or no?
Sure.
Sure, there you go. See,
Yeah,
why not?
sure, why not?
But no, we've talked about the DZ roster well enough. Everybody's showing up in a variety of ways. Now, Panbazoo obviously has been the story for this DZ team so far today. He has been a cold-blooded killer. 9 kills through about to be 9 rounds again. Beating that 1 kill per round average, which is so hard to do in Rainbow Six.
Yeah.
So he's showing up. That gives his team a fighting chance. And he's making a lot of these opportunities on his own. When he was on defense, he was the one that was taking those first engagements without real support from the rest of his team. Having a player who can do that is hard to find. And because he's doing that, it's giving DZ a fighting chance, even when Spacestation, in many of these rounds, might be the more coordinated team.
Having a team or having a player do that successfully time and time again is incredibly hard to come by, especially I would also say the entry role and the lurking role, arguably the two hardest roles in Rainbow Six Siege, depending on how you look at it. It requires the most amount of game sense, reading the situation, understanding the communication from your teammates to draw a painting or a picture of exactly what's going on, and then utilizing that correctly as the round progresses. Panbazoo, very young talent. We talk about it time and time again. It's kind of talking about almost too much, but Hyper, we can talk about this guy as well. Opening kill with a nade from below, I believe. We've seen that before, but they're actually on side Parker.
Oh my goodness, they're right here. They're not knocking on the door. They're ripping the whole door off the hinges. Hyper can't outduel hot and cold though, but the diffuser being planted by Eclipse. Another grenade finds its mark. The gun's not doing the job, but the explosives certainly are. Panbazoo walks away with just a single HP, but it's good enough to buy the rest of his team some time. Eclipse now the next one to suffer, but he outduels Skies. And Rampy in a 1v3 is all Spacestation has left to hope for. He's got a real tough job ahead of him. Creeping up on the last player that he needs to kill. No, Eclipse holding the angle. He wins it out. It's 3 in a row for DarkZero and 5 rounds in the last 6 as they take the lead here on Coastline.
And their first plan, I believe. So they got a lot of good things going for them.
SSG is going to take a timeout right now, so it'll give us some time to go over what the hell we're witnessing right now. This is an attacker-sided Coastline. We know that. Only 2 successful rounds on defense. But boy, oh boy, did you expect this level of punishment for the defenders when these two teams loaded in and banned the 4 operators they banned?
I mean, the one thing that could, I guess, show us these cards is if we look at Villa and how SSG failed to defend on Villa initially, and now it's kind of showing the same telltale signs where their early game falls apart, opening kill goes in favor of DarkZero more often than not, and then last round, the one we just saw, they throw one grenade from Hyper, they get a kill off it, they storm through side, if they trade out, becomes a 3 versus 3, but they get the plant down. Their post-plant 3-man setup was great, they had crossfire, nobody was vulnerable. What do you do as SSG going forward? Do you run at them? Do you start spawn peeking? Do you get desperate, in fact? Or do you just keep your cool and hope that at some point momentum will go their way, kind of like it was shifting back and forth from Villa because they're slipping further and further into the back seat?
I mean, you can tell from their expressions on their face. This is not a team who is happy with their performance.
No.
You don't need to be a professional commentator or a coach to understand that. But we saw that same look on the face of Space Station a number of times back in Map 1 on Villa. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they are mentally out of the game. They hung tight with DarkZero, the team that looked better throughout all of Villa, despite the fact that Space Station ended up eking out that victory. So there's still time for them to be able to correct this, but you're absolutely right. What do they do? If you're Lycan, what are you saying to your team to rectify the issues that have presented themselves throughout the course of this map? Because it certainly looks like you have very little confidence in your ability to defend Coastline right now.
I mean, the first thing I would talk about is obviously the obvious statement, which is our early game kind of sucks. We keep losing players in areas that we don't necessarily need, or we don't have any refragability options to trade back that man count. The strategy from SSG, their bomb site setups, honestly haven't been terrible. This time around, it's a hookah defense. Last time, DarkZero did not bring a hard breach. They showed the Hibana, 6-picked the Ace, and of course, now SSG, they're bringing the Mute Jammer. Why? The walls we spoke about earlier into Hookah Lounge, they're gonna get denied by the Jammers, which means if DC will do the same similar attack, but with a hard breach, SSG has done their job, and look at the vertical holes into Pink Bar. They can peel off the Selma charges from below. They're so prepared for this. This is a great start for SSG.
Well, I mean, you've set the expectations where they may be, but sometimes practice is not how things happen in reality. So you can be as prepared as you want, but Space Station need to follow up on that, because the last time we thought that there was a good defense from Space Station, NJR just walked right into the bomb site, if you'll recall. So little things can happen, and DZ need to be reactive as to how they want to deal with this.
I mean, already now we saw Pambasu throw a Twitch drone down the drone hole from the roof, and they got the jammer and they got the ADSs. Canadian making quick work of the cocktail wall, but it's not going to be a hooker attack at all. They've spent all their 3 Selma charges on the cocktail side of things.
Interestingly enough, no hard breach availability remaining, as there's no can opener or that secondary hard breach gadget, as it's referred to as, available for DarkZero. So they're going to have to live right now and exist with what they've done to that wall. Another toxic canister tossed out early by Bosco, same as before when SSG defended here.
I am curious to see if this is more of like a distraction play from DarkZero. It looked like a...
Do they think that there's an attack happening here? Because Hot and Cold is in the position where a lot of that focus seemed to be. Space Station might have been acting on bad information there.
DarkZero are kind of everywhere. Aqua Balcony down in Kitchen's Pambasu lurking around alone, so they're going to be striking from multiple angles at once. This is all about timing from DarkZero.
Well, we're just past the halfway mark, and the only player on either team to take any real damage is Skies. Hyper's looking to add somebody else from Space Station to that list, but he's not able to do too much. DZ excellent on these opening picks, and they take down Hot and Cold. That was the Aruni who was playing upstairs inside of Aqua. He's no more. Fultz had tossed out his Nitro Cell earlier on, and from our vantage point, we see the silhouettes, and we know that there's 2 players from DZ just lording over him right now. Very close to being able to put some pressure onto this bomb site.
Panda's going to be a huge key member of this round. When DarkZero goes to their attack for their push, that's when Pambasu has to strike if he chooses to stick around. He has the opportunity, and NGR has the kill.
Really remarkable stuff from DarkZero here. The timeout from Space Station not paying off just yet, but the time still favoring SSG. It continues to tick down, but the bodies will drop continuously. Fultz is the next one to join. Bosco and Rampy in a 2v5 with Eclipse planting the diffuser. He's almost done. They'll double up. Hyper says no. And how about another flawless round for DarkZero to move to map point?
Yeah, map point. They were also planting, actually, so only a few seconds later, it would have been a flawless round with a plant. That's basically the cherry on top, and you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's. Pambasu didn't stick around downstairs in kitchen. He actually made it outside the kitchen window and joined his teammate on the hookah balcony, making sure the body system was well functioning. He thought, why should I be alone and vulnerable downstairs when I'm not needed there necessarily? It's a great flank opportunity, but he's alone, and if he got taken out, you're just losing a player for free.
You talked about how well structured that defense was from Space Station. What went wrong, Nick?
I mean, first of all, DarkZero, they didn't attack it. So maybe perhaps when they came up to the hookah balcony, they saw very quickly that the setup from SSG actually favored if they were to go attack it. So instead of just attacking what they had set up and practiced for, what they had set up for, they said, you know what, let's go to the roof, breach cocktail, drop aqua balcony, but we're gonna keep one guy outside hookah balcony, cut the line into vase, we're gonna keep Pambasu downstairs in kitchen, make sure the flank is safe, and if we need, he can walk up that staircase. And if anything, this is just DarkZero reading SSG and recognizing where their strengths lie in their bomb site defense. And now we're gonna see another bomb site being played from SSG as they're going to double bar with a mirror on the board.
This is the first defense for Spacestation here on the double bar bomb site. They have now played every single site on the map, same as we saw from DarkZero. The rotation from Spacestation up to this point is a loss on hookah, a loss on penthouse, a loss on kitchen, another loss on hookah. And if you're a fan of DarkZero, you want to hear a loss on double bars as well, because that would seal the deal on this map and send us to Clubhouse, aka Dub House, a map that both teams have players on that are historically really impressive on. And of course, if you're going to be settling a score between these two teams, it's got to be on Clubhouse. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's still plenty to play, but the timeout from Spacestation did not work, and they now find themselves on the Razor's Edge here in Coastline.
And I don't think DarkZero is going to take a timeout if this round goes correctly, as that should be the last round for them. They're making quick work so far, taking penthouse control, and I mean, it looks like a basic roam clear. They got verticality, they got the sledge on NJR, and oh, never mind. I was thinking for a second maybe there's going to be a gunfight between Rampy and the guy above, but no, Hyper making his way into Aqua, and they already have pretty much full top floor control, as NGR is also on hookah balcony. This is very, very good for DarkZero.
These rounds tend to be brisk affairs, so once the first body hits the floor, it's likely that more will follow quite quickly. We'll see exactly what they can do. You talked about the top floor control that DarkZero has. Well, there's still one player that needs to be dispatched, and it's Fultz. And that Roni making a telltale sign leads DZ to know that somebody's still playing in this spot. A grenade will go off at his feet, but Fultz only takes minor damage. It's just a scratch on the paint, but Hyper swings on it, and I'm sure SSG will be unhappy about that one.
That is some aggression. I thought for a second that was a clone, and I can see everything else. Canadian finds a second on the skies. That is the Mute and the Aruni off the board. Hot and Cold is injured, also confirmed by Canadian, making it 5 versus 2, almost a 5 versus 1, as Bosco has almost no health left to stand on.
Well, DZ have done it all. It's all over but the crying at this point, leaving us looking likely to go to Clubhouse. And what an utterly dominant half. It was a flawless on the previous round. Eclipse will fall. Bosco gets the down, but not the secure. He needs to finish off the last player, but he won't do it.
It still counts.
Two flawless rounds in a row, 3 for the entire map. DarkZero putting on a clinic and absolutely embarrassing Spacestation. That gives us a third map between these teams as they tie themselves, 1 apiece, winning their respective maps.
Very impressive, and I will say, Pambasu did not disappoint. He kept up the momentum from first map. That was my biggest concern, and I would also say that Pambasu on both maps was a key factor to a lot of rounds, and of course, DarkZero winning Coastline and almost winning Villa.
Pambasu entered the day with 73 kills so far through these 2 maps. He has a combined 29 kills as he dropped 12 on Coastline and 17 on Villa. That puts him at 92 kills. Another player closing in on breaking triple digits. Hot and Cold had done it earlier on in the first couple rounds of Villa. Pambasu has an opportunity if he picks up 8 kills on Clubhouse to finish with 100 on this stage. Now, mind you, if DZ wins Clubhouse but Pamba underperforms, well, they'll be in the grand finals tomorrow, and there will be at least 3 maps for him to pick up enough kills.
True.
At that point, it's almost certain that he's going to do it. But boy, oh boy, an attacker-sided Coastline.
Explosive Coastline.
Explosive 5 rounds in a row. After DZ won round number 4, flawlessly, by the way, they only dropped a single round from that round to the end of the map. Talk about an impressive stretch of time.
They also came out with no plans in the beginning of their attacks. Then they got 1, almost got 2 more. They were mid-plant when they won 2 rounds, meaning that there was a bit of a shift in both how the performance of DarkZero was going, but also there was no change in performance for how HST was dealing with DarkZero. So one team clearly trumping the other when that side swap came out.
I really do want to say that after Lycan called the timeout for Spacestation, DarkZero won the next 2 rounds flawlessly. After the timeout, Spacestation did not get a single kill for the remainder of the map, and that's not exactly where you want to find your team when you try to settle them down. But It might not have been as close as map 1, but I'm sure our experts want to dissect what we witnessed on Coastline, so we'll toss our way over to the desk.
Thank you so much, Intero, and thank you so much, Intero. We're able to come back on Coastline and tie the score 1-1, and fellas, we're going to Clubhouse.
3 flawless rounds for DarkZero in that match. That's kind of the whole story. We looked at an SSG team up 3-0 and kind of figured that it might be an even larger slide, maybe a 5-1 half, a 4-2. It ended up being only 3-3, and then DarkZero make that half swap, and we see why they went to Coastline in the first place. They looked at SSG's structured style and said, we'll play Smash Mouth. We'll get right in their faces instead. And what happens? DarkZero win Coastline, a map that we saw them pick and didn't know if this was wise on their part.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things was the defensive to attacking swap and performance for somebody like Eclipse, who was 2-5 at the side swap. Look, he finished 7-6. I mean, that's 6-1. That's some pretty easy math, but he was on a very impactful operator that was facilitating a lot of the play for DarkZero on their attacks, where, sure, they were kind of playing a really fun way of poking and prodding the defense, playing for picks, and then as soon as something happened, they flipped the switch, exploded, and it looked great.
Now, take a look at the stats for a second. Pamba popping off again. See, Daps, if it's some CL thing where you're on the desk and Pamba pops off, 12-4, 3 opening kills, and only 1 opening death. And on the flip side, Rampy was a leading fragger, going 9-11. But, fellas, DarkZero looked good. And Jacob, this is on a map that we didn't expect DarkZero to win. We made funny faces, but still, they pulled out ahead. And we're going to Clubhouse, man. But before we jump into that, you had something to say about seeing Sky on Blitz.
It was just strange. It's not something I want him to do consistently because there really isn't a right way to play Blitz, so to speak. But SSG were up 3-0, and we're like, there's probably going to be a role here. Maybe 2 to 3 more rounds if they keep on playing like this. They bring out a Blitz. Blitz dies first, and it just doesn't do anything on Coast where you can hit people from multiple angles, and you only have one that you're capable of blocking with a Blitz to begin with.
Yeah.
I'd call it an overconfidence move on SSG's part. They know that they're in like a bit of a groove, and then they pick an op that you just don't see on this map like utilized very frequently. And what does that turn into? DarkZero winning a flawless next up, and then SSG only winning 1 more round for the entirety of the map. It seemed like you need to play a little bit more to your strengths and don't allow, however like confident or cocky you are, to get in the way of your performance overall.
If there was a type of cockiness that was out there, and if anybody were to have it, I would be comfortable having it with Skies, but no, it did not work out. But you know what did work out, man? The Finka play. The Finka play was fantastic. Now, the thing is, you were talking about how on map 1, we didn't really see it at all, but map 2 came around, Eclipse jumped on Finka, and they went crazy.
Well, it was banned on map 1, so that's why we didn't see it. Technically still a presence throughout the entire map, but as things stood for DarkZero, once again, going back their attacks, they were very pokey proddy, they were playing for picks, and then the Finka, that was their kill switch. As soon as they got a pick, it was, hey, let's push that button, it's time to go. They would explode onto the site. They were executing at very weird times, and for SSG's defenses, they didn't know what to think. It was one of those things. It's like, hey, they're pushing for everywhere at once. There's phantom pressure all over the place. They're poking and prodding, and then boom, they're in sight. It was wonderful to see, but we also did see a very drastically different playstyle coming out of SSG's attack. They were a lot more kind of static, more standard, where for the Finka, it was more so brought in as a accelerant for them. If they kind of brought it, it was, hey, let's go a bit faster, not quite. I'm going to pour some gasoline on the fire, and we're going.
Yeah, I think the problem is when SSG played this map last, it was against NIP, it was at the Sweden Major, it was the last map that they had because they were down in their best of 3. So what do? They try to go in, find 1 kill, and then everyone falls back and they can worry about what their execute looks like. Not against DarkZero, it seems, because again, you understand how like they wanted to structure their defenses, and 9 times out of 10 it worked. Against NIP, it didn't. Against DarkZero, it didn't. So what they had in mind was find 1 kill, immediately restructure your team orientation, and get into position for an execute. They did it more often than not. It was a nice idea, but DarkZero just were entrenched, opened up every single wall imaginable, had every angle at their disposal, and they used them incredibly well.
And we saw Eclipse using that Finka boost to start off engagements on attacks as well, which was absolutely beautiful. But you know what's going to be even sexier than that? It's going to be map number 3. We're going to Clubhouse. Jacob,
let's go.
You and I, Jacob, you and I, we don't know who's going to win this map. C-Daps, I'm not sure where you stand yet. How do you think this is going to turn out?
You know, Clubhouse for SSG, people used to call it Dub House. It used to be their place, the birth of the Rome.
Yes.
But, you know,
the Space Station Rome.
the SSG Rome, which is just for them, it's called the Rome, but whatever. As things stand, with all the momentum going into the favor of DZ, their opening picks have been massive, and that's going to translate once again onto a map like Clubhouse. I see them taking it. I'm standing by my prediction.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. We haven't seen DarkZero play with this role swap on Clubhouse to any real degree of success. They didn't play it in Sweden at all, and they only played 3 maps after that role swap, Clubhouse not being one of them. When they did previously against a team like Mirage, it still turned into a 7-3, but attacks followed DZ syndrome. They were slow, they were sluggish, they tried checking all the boxes. I do think that this team overall is prone to that same kind of thing, but we haven't seen a team with Canadian at the helm successfully get over that DZ syndrome hump and win a map like Club, and this is somewhere that we know SSG likes to shine, and they do it time and time again. This, for them, is still Dubhouse. DarkZero, 2-0 on it in the NAL through the course of this year. Spacestation, 4-1.
Whoo, that's a big difference right there. But still, the 2-0, I mean, DZ, they look well. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time. This is a point in time where you have to win or you go home. Space Station Gaming or DarkZero will move on to the finals, but the loser, that's going to be it for them. But coming up after this break, we'll see the conclusion of this series. We'll see you on the other side.
What does it take to create the future of a gaming community? Join us on this 4th episode of I Call Next as we discover how to level up gameplay and reset the expectations of an entire league. PayPal. Press play.
Do you want to get better at Rainbow Six? The best way to improve is to review your gameplay. That's where Insights comes in. Insights Capture automatically records as soon as your match starts. Immediately review your VODs with game events like kills, deaths, and assists. Clip your most important moments to share and review with teammates or friends. Connect your account to insights.gg to access more tools to help you improve your performance. Download Insights for free today.
I lived most of my life in Texas. I was a very social person, into sports, was always going out, worked jobs throughout high school. So I actually got in a car wreck and I was home a lot. Because of that, I was playing more games. You know, I had to finish a lot of school from the computer and it completely switched. Now I don't like to go out, I don't like to talk to people, and I like to just be around the people that I work with. But Siege was like my first esport game. It wasn't something that I even knew existed until later on of the year, the first season. Then I started playing with England, Geometrics, Laxing, and it kind of got me into the competitive side of it. Competing at the Six Invitational on Xbox, the very first one, on winning the way that the team that I was on did, kind of brought fire in. It was like, wow, I can really do this. And then boom, they took it away from Xbox and I had to relearn it all on PC. I was very, very bad in the beginning. Then I just kind of grinded through with everybody and got good at it, and still have a lot to do, a lot to learn. You know, retiring and coming back, I'm still very, very rusty, nowhere near the player that I used to be. and I want to be able to get back to that position because I think if I do, I think the team I'm on now can win. The biggest goal is to win Invitational. So that's what we want, and that's what I want.
Well, of course, when Space Station and DarkZero square off, we need all 3 maps to decide which of them happens to be the better team. And we're going to go to no other than Clubhouse, Nick.
We are, and if I didn't really want it any other way, a 2-0's a lame, and you know, C-Dabs he gets for 2-0, he's a loser now, he's not a wizard anymore, I have now a caster curse. We're going to Clubhouse, and I think that this map suits both teams very well. And speaking of suits, do you want to tell the new people watching one more time about what it is exactly that you're wearing, Parker?
Well, I'm actually wearing Indochino. Did you know that you can go to Indochino and get your own suits customized and ordered just for you and for your own specifications? I see this as a guy who doesn't exactly have a body type that works really well off the rack. So I can go there, you get measured, you pick out your fabrics, you can get it tailored as to what kind of pockets you want. Do you want them slanted? What kind of buttons do you want? And they will make it for you and then send it to you. It's quite convenient. And you got one as well, as far as I'm aware.
I do, I will say that. But I saw Jacobs earlier. He showed it to me, and his like lining inside here was like this galaxy space thing. And I was like, that is absolutely absurd, but incredible at the same time that you can customize your suit with a galaxy inline. Like, how did Jacob think of that?
I just want to say I like this because they don't have just your typical black, gray, white patterns. They've got some ostentatious offerings, if I can say that, and some of the designs are louder than I am, and I love them for it. So you can get yours custom designed as well. Like we said, Indochino is the place to go. And if you want to find out more, by the way, you can just go to Indochino.com. That's INDOCHINO.com. With that said, though, you can't see our suits anymore, but you can see the in-game suits, aka the uniforms of the operators on both Space Station and DarkZero. It's time to get underway with our third map here on Clubhouse. Map number 1, Villa, went all 15 rounds with Space Station winning as time ran out on DarkZero. It was not the case for Coastline, where DarkZero absolutely mopped the floor with Space Station in the second half and took the map 7-4. So now we go to Clubhouse, aka Dubhouse, to settle the score. And we're almost on the operator ban phase. Thatcher and Hibana, pretty standard stuff for Clubhouse. Mira and...
Valkyrie Kite. Oh, there it is.
You can't say 2 names, that's cheating!
I said Valkyrie first. It doesn't matter. I played it safe.
Okay.
I was like, Kai, because Thatcher's banned, but I said Valkyrie first. That means I cannot lose unless they don't go for either of those. I need to work on that. I always say 2 operators when people say guess. It's like, who do you think will win? I'm like, SSG DarkZero. They're like, who? They're like, pick one. I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really matter who I think will win. What matters is what teams plays the best, because best performance does take home the victory for themselves. This is pretty basic stuff.
Actually, competition is inherently toxic. It just matters if they have fun.
Said no one ever. Come on, Parker. It's an NAL finals. It matters about performance. Who does good? Who does bad? Who gets sent home early? First round, the teams get made fun of. How is that not fun?
That's true. That is very, very true. And they might not be the defending world champions any longer, but the former world champs getting bounced in the quarters. I guess technically this is the semis.
Technically semis.
Technically the semis of the NA League. Well, if you want to make fun of Space Station, now would be the time. Well, I mean, not right now. If they lose, then that would be the time. That would be the time to do it. But anywho, here we are on Clubhouse. DarkZero will be starting upstairs on a bomb site that a lot of teams don't love playing on. It's going to be gym and bedroom.
And it's interesting because, so the way the operator ban phase went was that DarkZero banned Thatcher every single map so far, I believe, and SSG opted for a Hibana ban. Typically, when I see Hibana being banned as a defender, I'm thinking, I want to go basement. That's where Hibana is the strongest, she's not in this game, ergo, we should probably go there. Plus, the Maverick is extremely efficient for both top floor attacks, and of course, SSG brought the Maverick because why wouldn't they? So I'm curious to see what DarkZero has in mind. Of course, they did this knowing these operator bans were the case, and we see Maestro being played for the 2nd time in this series. However, this time it's not Fultz, it is Eclipse who will make work of the Alda and of course the Bubbles. SSG approaching the map, very nice and chill, gonna get the office hatch, boom, slapped off the roof.
For the less hardcore fans and the less initiated,
Oh yeah,
Bubbles are
Maestro cameras.
There you
There
go.
it is. Yeah,
That's called insider baseball, is what that is, ladies and gentlemen, and it is what teams refer to as Maestro Cams, aka Evil Eyes. They call them Bubbles.
Yeah, it's faster when you communicate inside the game when you are a professional player or just an up-and-coming competitive player. You're trying to make your callouts as efficient and precise as possible, and saying Maestro Camera versus Bubble is 2 very different things. And also, Maestro Camera, you say Maestro first, which could be the operator, could be the gadget, you'll never know because you might be dead in that time span. So, again, Bubbles.
It's a grim way of putting it.
It is.
But, all that said, first focal point for Space Station, open up that jacuzzi wall, and from the sound of the sledgehammer going off of Rampy, it sounds like that is mission accomplished.
Yeah.
There's a flank drone down below being watched by Hot and Cold as Fultz is waiting to see if somebody will provoke a fight over by Lounge, leading to the stairs inside of stock, but there's nobody there for now. Hyper is positioned to roam through there towards the main floor. And Fultz, by the way, who is down below, he'll run right into NJR, but NJR likely using the hatch as an alibi, has a vantage point now, also looking over towards the jacuzzi wall. From below, NJR sees the bullets go through, and he can just continue to hold in construction. That floor is completely solid. He doesn't have to worry about any vertical play unless a grenade gets tossed up through the hatch, or right in front of him, actually.
Yeah, and SSG, as you said, they got the wall open onto the jacuzzi, and they've basically made their way in through the hallway, but with Eclipse playing inside a bathroom with grenade or impact grenades in his hand, that will mean that thermite in this bathroom wall is likely not going to happen. Rambi will have to make a play on this main stairs and find an opening for his team because they can't just be standing there. They gotta get inside.
Pamazoo's down for the count. He has 0 kills on the board thus far. They need another big game from him. He's been an absolute superstar. 29 kills over these first 2 maps. Another Herculean performance will almost certainly carry his team on to the finals tomorrow. Rampy takes down Canadian, and just like that, Space Station have the advantage in terms of numbers, which will grow as NJR bites the dust. Rampy on a hope and a prayer, barges into logistics, and he's swatted away by Hyper. Now Hot and Cold punished by the Alda. So many bullets just rattling away. Grenades tossed out by Eclipse as it's him against 2 players from SSG, but he's been so good on the clutch, and he's good again. Huge plays from DarkZero, and a statement to start off map number 3.
Rat-a-ta-ta-ta, the gun doesn't stop shooting. The perfect gun to have if you are down man count. Eclipse making good work of the weapon and won the round for his team again. We saw him do it on Villa in the 1 vs 2, and now we've seen him do it on the very first opening round of the 3rd map on Clubhouse. Very interesting first round. It was kind of slow paced after this super quick, aggressive Coastline. And of course, you would think it might take a few rounds to, get back to a new pattern for both of these teams, but they both played the same game of playing it safe, playing it smart, and playing the objective, which Clubhouse is all about. It's all about who has the bigger strat book, that has the most different ways of approaching the same problem, and of course, flexibility is the name of that game, and Hot and Cold has 6-picked himself onto the Capital. I like that.
Capitao is an operator who has an ever-evolving role in the meta. For so long, the constant addition of bulletproof gadgets meant that an operator like Capitao's stock continued to go down because he doesn't bring any explosives to the table.
Nope.
But the one thing that a Capitao does bring now is that can opener. The secondary hard breach gadget, as you have talked about, is available in his hands. Now, on a map like Clubhouse, you need about as much hard destruction as you can get. The lineup from Spacestation right now in terms of hard destruction, it's going to be the Maverick and the Thermite, which is plenty, by the way, especially if you're attacking the bottom floor, which Spacestation is. But now you've got that added insurance policy. Hot and Cold can use those 2 secondary hard breach gadgets to open up at least 2 of the hatches, freeing up those exothermic charges to go over on the church wall, to go onto another hatch, to potentially go onto escape tunnel or dirt tunnel, and it also allows a lot more flexibility with how a Maverick is going to play. Also, if one of them dies, it's not the end of the world because you've got other operators to try and carry some of that weight.
I think you hit every single point very well, Parker, to be honest. And if you were to say, oh, but you could just play Ace instead of the Capital, well, actually, you need 2 Selma charges, which is Ace's gadget, to open up 1 hatch, which means you can only get 1 half. With a hard breach gadget or the can opener, you can get 2 hatches. Your value is actually outright just better, especially on Capital with the smokes and the fires. You can take blue with that, dirt with that. Honestly, you can go for any kind of attack because Capital is so flexible. And Hot and Cold, a flexible player, playing a flexible operator, what's not to love?
He's already used one of those can openers to open up the hatch inside a stock, which leads down into blue. That is a common spot as well that you can use one of those fire arrows or a smoke arrow too. The other thing with Ace is that while he has 3 Selmas and he can only open up a hatch and a half, that's his full utility.
Yep.
Once the hard breach gadgets are done from Capitao, you can smoke out or burn out your opponents. So lots of flexibility that Capitao brings, and while it's more common to see a Capitao brought attacking upstairs to that CCTV bomb site, he still has his uses down below.
Yeah, and this is a very, very typical, and I say that in a good sense, good attack from SSG. They basically want to open up every single hatch possible and not give away exactly what their plan is just yet. They seem to go for a blue attack. That's what the fire and the Capital is great for. But where's the follow-up? Did they try and get the free pick in case the guy was playing there? Or not? It seems like they just wanted to get a free kill. Didn't happen. They're okay with that. They got other options. They got the moto hatch, the stock hatch, and the kitchen hatch all opened up.
Another thing, too, as we just focus on Hot and Cold's Capitao here, is that the hard counter for Capitao exists in Wamai.
Yep.
Jaeger's ADSs do not work with those arrows that get shot out from Capitao's crossbow. So, with Panbazoo still having 1 magnet that he just tossed out available, if they got burned in blue, then it might be an opportunity for SSG to use it and punish DZ. All the while, by the way, Bosco has died at the hands of Canadian. They were teammates for so long. They won a world championship together, but there is no honor among thieves when they swamp out rosters. Hot and Cold picks off 1 before Hyper reciprocates, and now a second goes for Hyper as well as Fultz falls, Rampy dying as well, and DZ look absolutely incredible on this defense. They've taken the first 2 rounds here on Clubhouse.
There's a great solid hold. They also got some opening kills. Canadian taking care of the Maverick. That also means less grenades, less breach ability if you want to go for a church attack. I am a little bit combustled about the whole situation with the Capital fire instead of blue, and then they didn't really act upon it. Typically, if you go for a blue attack, when you toss down those fire arrows from Capital, that's when you're going to push up the blue hallway, perhaps walk down the blue stairs. You probably don't want to jump the head. It's a bit risky, but especially you want to make sure that when you're using your utility, that you make a play with it. Otherwise, you're just kind of doing it for fun. The only way something could have come out of that round is if you used your fire and the Jaeger playing inside of blue just stood there and just died to the fire. But why would he do that? So I would have loved to see SSG with a bit more of a push the go button and actually go for it instead of just kind of wandering around and not really getting a solid ground anywhere. We got more rounds to do that. It's only 2 rounds in. 3rd round is starting up. we're going through the bomb sites pretty quickly. Gym, basement, CCTV.
It is fun to watch these teams try to outmaneuver each other. You go back to Villa, and both teams showed signs of brilliance in regards to how they wanted to hold various bomb sites. Every single bomb site was played on Villa. Every single bomb site was played on Coastline. This goes to show you how even these two teams are, and how both are going to be very innovative in regards to how they approach the current meta. Because on a map like Villa, Living Room and Library are not is not a common bomb site to see. On Coastline, Penthouse and Theater has seen its pick rate restored, but it also was the redheaded stepchild of that map. Here, Bar and Stock sees some play as well on Clubhouse, so it's entirely possible that we see another map with all 4 sites used. And given the creativity both of these teams have shown so far today, I would not be surprised, and in fact, would be quite excited were we to see it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't be surprised, but I would be happy. And surprise, surprise, Canadian is actually playing Bandit despite the Maverick being open. Now, this of course could come into play later on if SSG don't expect it, they try and get lazy, maybe they don't Maverick up the entire line, maybe they try and just, nade off the Bandit battery, then juggle it, whatever the case might be. But Bandit is not typically seen on Clubhouse these days when the Maverick is in play because of the reason that Maverick directly just counters it. You make a line up top, make a line at the bottom, the wall becomes soft, you destroy that soft wall, and then, well, there's just a giant hole in the side and Bandit can't do anything about it. So, Kite and Bandit both in play, of course, making sure that if maybe SSG made a mistake, they could punish them. Not so far.
This cash defense shaking out about as what you'd expect right now, as Hyper was holding down on construction. A lot of effort being put in to hold that piece of the map. You see 3 reinforcements. There was also that mute jammer that was played out. It looked like either a Bandit battery, it was a Bandit battery, not a mute jammer, being played in that particular position, but the deployable shield that was guarding it taken out by one of the Rotero drones, and now the wall sails open. You can see it yourself. It looks like there might be still some wood there. That could just be a visual effect. We're not entirely sure, but it has certainly stripped the metal reinforcement off of that spot. An explosive goes out, almost certainly a nitro cell, tossed out by either Eclipse or Canadian. It nearly cost Bosco his life. Through these 2 rounds, Nick, DarkZero have been the team to open up the killing both times, and with it, they've won both rounds. There's only a minute to go, and if they're going to find a first pick, you have to do it soon.
Yeah, and as time is ticking down, he's gonna stop maving the construction wall, but Hyper staying aggressive, staying true to his name, being that hyper-aggressive player himself. And Skies, actually it's hot and cold finding the opening kill onto Pambasu, and that's gonna shake things up, as that's SSG's first opening kill so far.
Oh, almost an opportunity on the roamer. Down below as Hot and Cold looks for more, but Canadian manages to avoid it for now. Heading over to Garage. He might want to re-aggress. Hyper, the first kill for DZ, but it's answered right back by Skies, so an advantage that is now gone. Back again, Space Station will go to hold that advantage. Only 20 seconds remain. A perfect time to toss out a gas canister. 1 still in the pocket of NJR as he'll watch it. A nice shot on the Skies. The gun does the work. Pivoting on over. It only has a short amount of bullets, but it seems like it never ends as all the guns from DZ hit their marks. Bosco had lost almost all his HP earlier on. There's only a tiny bit left to find, and despite surrendering the opening pick, DZ looks like they're going to be able to hang on based on the clock alone. 3-0 DarkZero.
Discipline, discipline, discipline. The moment that 1 versus 2 hit, we saw NJR give up the red hallway, sprint into server, and just hide behind the server rack. And the last remaining player from DarkZero went all the way deep in catwalk. That was Canadian just proned. So even if one of those players would fall, the other one could hide and abuse the fact that there's only a couple of seconds left on that clock. Basically meaning that discipline wins you the round. You don't need to take your gunfights. You don't need to hit your shots. There's no reason to take that risk against Bosco, despite him having so little health. SSG are known for their clutches. If you don't give it to them, they can't do it, and that is exactly what DC is doing, and they've done it on every single map so far. Don't fight unless you have to in those early X's. Back up to Jim. Not showing the bar just yet, but there is still time to show it. I would love to see how they would go about it, as there is a couple of different ways to approach that bomb site. But it seems that the same approach will be used, or at least in similar fashion, from DarkZero when it comes to Jim, as they have brought out the Maestro once again.
DZ obviously not yet wanting to hit the break glass in case of emergency situation to go down to Bar and Stock on the first floor, as we talked about, but I mean, they had a very stalwart defense of Jim Master the first time around, rebuffing the entry from Jacuzzi, not surrendering construction, still holding on to logistics, and fighting SSG every step of the way. And then you end up in that do-or-die situation where Eclipse clutches the 1v2. And he did so, mind you, in not necessarily the most sustainable way. You can't always rely on a clutch to happen. That said, it was still an impressive performance by DarkZero. They have it now at this point guaranteed that they cannot lose the first half, no matter what happens. If they end up in free fall, then they're still going to end up in a good spot. This also means with these 3 rounds from DarkZero, Nick, that there are now 8 rounds won in a row from DarkZero, and of the last 11 rounds played in this series, DZ have won 10 of those. So if you are Spacestation, you have to go back almost an hour back to round number 6 on Coastline when Spacestation prevailed in one of these rounds.
That is a very good point, and I'm sure that SSG are starting to feel the pressure as things are closing in, and even with the yellow ping and the drone support, Hyper still somehow manages to win the gunfight against Foltz as the opening kill on the 4th round. Although the drone might take his life, it does not, but the walkthrough does, and that is Rambi trading it back 1 for 1.
Big opening pick, but we'll see what Spacestation can get more out of this, because DarkZero are very deep off-site. We talked about how you can hold this site not in the confines of the wall. Instead, you want to focus on holding cash, and that's exactly where Eclipse is right now. But Rampy has a better idea at the top of red. I don't know if they're aware that Pambazoo is still in the same spot. He's maving around. He takes down 1, but there's a giant opening, and he's just engaging. Rampy with the better trigger discipline, though, and waits to fire as his reflexes say, hey, there's somebody here. Let's do just that. Spacestation now in a 3v2. This is their best opportunity to win a round that we've seen in quite a while, going all the way back to the very first round that these teams played on this same bomb site.
Yeah, some people might be thinking, Panda, why did you swing that situation? But to be honest, he absolutely has to. He is completely stuck inside of cash with no way out. He has to go for the miracle play. Found one, couldn't unfortunately find the second one, but his team actually aren't in that bad of a position. DC has fair bit of side control. Bosco is less than half on health. Rambi is 75% health, which means that NGR and Canadian, like they did on the CC round, winning that 2 versus 1, they are in a position to win the 2 versus 3. And with 35 seconds and ticking, SSG has to make their move.
They're lined up right now to break through construction, getting a Z-ping on out as to where they might want to be able to plant this body inside of Jim. I don't know if they're aware, but NJR has sailed on in. He just sees the beret of Bosco. A Nitro Cell tossed out from Canadian does not collect onto Rampy. More to be done as he's keeping his attention over by logistics. Down goes NJR, so they know where he is, but oh no,
Wait.
is that a potential team kill?
So.
As now he's been downed. Canadian in a 1v2. Diffuser being planted. The Maverick will be watching the door. He sees it. He hesitates. He races in, but the plant goes down all the same, and Skies pops off to clutch it out. There was a missed opportunity from Canadian. He hesitated, and he ended up losing it. Spacestation put their very first round on the board.
Canadian walked in, killed the Maverick, and with those 2 or 1 second left, he assumed that Skies would get off the plant and try and go for the refrag, and he basically faked it back, stepped back out the room, realized that Skies stalked the plant, and then Skies finds the kill afterwards. That is so unfortunate for Canadian, and I do believe you're correct. I think there was a team injury in the midst of that round, as Sledge was not fighting anybody near him, but was still found injured on the ground, making that 1 versus 2 almost possible for Canadian.
Well, I mean, this is a story of clutches. The amount of clutching moments that we have seen, the clutch potential from both teams over all 3 of these maps has been through the roof. This has been one of the most entertaining best of 3s that we've actually watched in quite some time. We've gotten treated to some great matches, don't get me wrong, over the course of the last year or so, but boy oh boy, there's just something about when these 2 teams collide. And I will say, based on the way that these teams played in Stage 3 and based on DarkZero's performance in Sweden, this is a triumphant comeback from them. Because DZ came in tied with TSM in last place for the finals. And I mean, last place isn't tied in 4th, essentially, because only the top 4 get in. DZ had a bad performance in Sweden. Spacestation did not. And what ends up happening? DarkZero not only take the fire to them, come just a couple rounds away from winning Villa, but then pulverizing this Spacestation team on Coastline, and now succeeding as well to take an early lead here on Clubhouse. Now, this map is still very early. It's a defender-sided map, and we see DarkZero in a great spot, doing what they need to do. But Spacestation just proved that they can stick with them. They need a couple more rounds to try and keep this close before the side swap.
Yeah, so just for some context, in Sweden, DarkZero did not make it to playoffs. They were 4th in their group and just basically went home pretty early on, whereas SSG, they did make it into playoffs, but they had suffered a 2-0 loss to NIP. So SSG doing a bit better, as people know and I think also expect. The one thing about this is, yes, defender-sided map, and there's still 2 more rounds to go. They could even go 3-3 and equal out the first half. But DarkZero's attacks, I will say, have actually looked better throughout this series than that of SSG's. And that really means something, because DarkZero, throughout most of the entirety of last year, and with the exception of the end of Stage 3 of NAL, they have had really terrible attacks, to put it bluntly. It's not looking pretty, but so far in this series, they are delivering on both fronts.
Yeah, what happens when a bad attacking DarkZero team has to play against a good defensive team on Clubhouse? That could be a recipe for disaster, but I honestly believe DarkZero have beaten our expectations through so much of this matchup.
Agreed.
So, at the moment, if you are a DarkZero fan, there's a lot that you can be happy about. There's still plenty of time for Spacestation to keep this one close, though. Not all hope is lost. It's another downstairs/church defense for DarkZero, and they were able to hold off Spacestation's Capitao-led assault on this particular bomb site quite well last time.
Yeah, it looks for a different approach for SSG. It looks to be more of a kitchen-oriented take, but they do have people lingering on that blue hatch now. Oh, actually, I take that back. They have 2 people, one inside of the garage pit and one guy on the blue hatch, meaning that this could go either way. Perhaps one could argue it's going to be a flex attack where you go from both sides. We'll see if Hyper can deal with the pressure, as he is the main player inside of blue.
The old pincer move,
Yeah,
Nick.
the hammer and anvil.
Bolts is ready, by the way. He's in oil pit, and he can just continue to charge down blue as he sees
Oh,
fit.
this is good. They're pushing
Magnets
with the
being
utility.
burned, and they're using it quite effectively. NJR, though, leveling Fultz. No, that's Hyper credited with it, so NJR or Hyper will swing, and Skies takes him down on this particular position. Still, NJR on just a fraction of HP needs to be a little bit better. Bosco almost clears out Eclipse in Dirt Tunnel, and now he's got full control of that. He can continue to push on up. Unfortunately, Hot and Cold sees the back. That is not a hitbox! And this needs to be a smooth push from SSG, but no, it's turbulent. As Bosco inside of Escape Tunnel, he'll have to reunite with Rampy. They've got control of the back of the bomb site. Sky's getting the diffuser down, and it's been a bait and switch. Grenade tossed out. Panbazoo looking for a retake, but the box is stopping him. He can't deal with the sledge. Can he deal with the Maverick? Rampy down for the count. Sky's now the last one alive, and they have but seconds left to find them. Canadian will do that, and DZ, no matter what, they've got 4 rounds in this first half. They can't lose it. But SSG still has one opportunity. It's the final defense for DarkZero, final attack.
Once again, it is so clutch. There was basically a 3 versus 3 turned to 3 versus 2. SSG are trying to plant, DarkZero trying to stop them. Multiple people are so low on health. They have kitchen control, they had dirt control. It came down to individual gunfights. Earlier in that round, what started this entire thing was SSG opting for that blue take once again. However, it was a flex attack. They came 1 person dirt, 1 person came up the long hallway, 1 person dropped kitchen edge, I believe, and 2 people pushed blue. So essentially, they came from most, if not all, angles onto DarkZero. They used their flashbangs this time and a grenade to try and flush out the Jaeger on Hyper inside of blue, and Fultz pushed the garage pit hallway with those flashbangs. They made up for all the errors they made on the previous basement attack, and somehow, someway, Hyper still found the opening kill onto Fultz. I would like to say that Hyper has his number, because Fultz is 0 and 5. If I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 of those deaths has been to Hyper himself. He is farming kills from Fultz right now.
Well, boy, oh boy, Panbazoo has gone quiet, but the rest of DarkZero have really stepped up, as you talked about. Eclipse has also been rock steady, and as somebody who we have not necessarily talked about through most of this entire series, he was almost neck and neck with Panbazoo back on Villa. At the end, Panbazoo edged him out, and then again, some very impactful rounds from Eclipse on Coastline. Now, Here he is competing with Hyper for the top of DarkZero. And this is with the role swaps that we saw from DZ. It was shown on the analyst desk in between these maps, back in between map number 1 and 2, if I remember correctly, talking about how DarkZero has blown up their attacking roster. And that's also reverberated on defense.
No.
Speaking of, though, of roles, it's nice to see Canadian reunited with Pulse, but I don't want to interrupt you.
No, sorry, I'm not interrupting you if anything. No, so basically what DarkZero did is that when Troy originally joined the roster in Stage 3, what happened was that he was put on hard support, and their attacks were abysmal in terms of win rate. So now Canadian is more of this like flex frontal side on their attacking rounds while still playing information game on defense, and it's working out so much better for DarkZero, and their win rate on attack has actually gone up a drastic amount in that last half of Stage 3 of an year.
The opportunities for Spacestation have gone drastic down as well. So here you have it. Very final defense for DarkZero, very final attack for Spacestation. They'll swap sides, and for SSG, they might be able to breathe a sigh of relief. What I will say, it's been phenomenal watching these teams do battle, but it's been curious by the fact that Spacestation have taken 2 timeouts. They have not hit the timeout button just yet because I believe that they believe that it's the side battling against them, not necessarily DarkZero. And hey, maybe that's the case. I'm sorry, did we just see Bosco run right into the middle of the bomb site? Yes, we did. All right. Well, he's in there and he's got control, cutting them all down. NJR will toss out a toxic canister, but that's 2 for Bosco, and he's out. His famous disappearing act. My, oh my, what a gamble from Spacestation, and it pays off.
It's absolutely incredible. Bosco saying, I'm sick of losing, running it inside the building and taking out 2 kills. And Hot and Cold finds 1, False finds the second, now leaving Hyper, the man to do it all alone. But no, it's a flawless round from SSG. And that is a well-needed round.
Absolutely, and that's the way to put it. This is a confidence booster going into the second half. Once DarkZero won round number 5, that's it. You are not playing to win that first half any longer. You can't do it. You couldn't win the first half after the third round when DZ was up 3-0. Best you could do was tie. So what do? You try to get into a good mental headspace and try to untilt the playing field, which is very much tilted against you at that point. So Spacestation collect 2 of the last 3 rounds, starting to build up some momentum. Prior to that victory in round number 4, it was almost an hour ago that Spacestation had won their last round, so they desperately needed to start getting some wins in these rounds. That said, they'll swap sides, and before we get there, just a tale of the first half. It was a 4-2 score for DarkZero. In terms of opening picks, DarkZero walking away with opening picks, 3 to SSG's 2, and another was a quick trade. Spacestation had a flawless round, and there were no diffusers fully planted, though they did get a little close on that one opportunity in gym for Spacestation. That said, we'll see what happens with the very first defense here from Spacestation down below, Nick.
Yeah, we shall, and it is, you know, the infamous, if you will say, SSG roam. Not in full effect, we don't quite see the Mossy in play, but it is that extend up above, put down some jammers perhaps, play the Vigil, that is crucial to the strategy. You're gonna open up the gym hatch, connector hatch, make sure there's ways to fall back, and then you just waste a bunch of time, and you kind of do the opposite of what DarkZero were doing, where they were more comfortable on the bomb side, whereas SSG, they're gonna be about equally comfortable up above. And they're not gonna win the round up here by any means. It's not like they're gonna kill 5 players with only 2 players on their side. It's just a matter of wasting utility, resources, time, and if possible, trade 1 for 1 or fall back to side successfully but nobody traded out at all, and you actually have won a lot because time is of the essence on a map like Clubhouse, where it's all about taking your time to breach the walls, scour out the bomb site, figure out your approach, and then set up the execute. You need every single second that you can get, and well, you also need all the drones you can get, and a drone was lost for DC.
Plenty of setup still left to do, 45 seconds into the round, and I guess now's the time to sort out what happens next. But this is not particularly unique. If a team knows that you're not going to be pressuring them from one particular area, then you can turn your sights somewhere else and maybe try to waste their time or have them re-drone something.
Look at that. The second the 1 minute timer went through, so we are on 2 minutes left on the clock, they instantly fall back from top floor, on the dot.
Holding this main floor now is Rampy and Hot and Cold in tandem. Hot and Cold inside of Kitchen. Fultz is joining the party too, so Spacestation have 3 bodies off of the main floor. This off-site hold on a bottom floor defense is something that we used to refer to as the Spacestation roam for so long because they basically patented it, but that was a very different time and involved mute, Castle, Vigil, etc. So a bit of different tools being brought by Spacestation, but still wasting time and wasting utility in the process, as all the drones being thrown their way, not really working out all that well. Okay, Fultz might be a little bit confused as to where he just got punished from, but he could presumably escape.
Yeah, he's making his way down. He did get shot from up top floor, and this is a nice angle you can get from Master Bedroom all the way down to the platform of main stairs. He'll get revived, have 20 health for himself, but now the question comes, are DarkZero aware of this player inside of Kitchen? It does appear to be the case. C4 gets tossed, it's not confirmed. They're gonna battle it out. Hot and Cold is... This is what we qualify and ranked as hell in a cell.
Now, I was going to say, the Nitro Cell might not be an indicator that he's still there. It could have been pre-placed, but the bullets through the door absolutely did, right? He's finished off, though, by NJR, so whether your assessment or my assessment was correct, Han Cold is still dead, so not an ideal spot for him to be in. Trailing in terms of numbers in a 5v3 favoring DarkZero now. Fultz on low HP as Bosco begins the tough job of stopping the defense from falling to the hands of an aggressive attacker team. Fultz is next in line inside of Moto as utility is being dumped into the back of Arsenal. Hyper's close by to be able to capitalize off of that. Is all of DZ now over by Blue. This is an interesting spot for them to go in because Skies could at such close range shut them all down. He trades out though as the diffuser now getting planted in the capable hands of Eclipse. Fultz and Bosco look for the retake and the shotgun is there and ready for them. But the diffuser needs to be planted desperately and it's a Hyper to do that. NJR needs to hold him off, wasting time on Bosco. He secures onto Eclipse, but there's the timer now working against him. It's the very first defense for Space Station, and they'll have to fight from behind. Shotgun pulled out, completely blinded. Bosco doesn't know what to do next. Still has an opportunity at his hands, but there's two sights looking in his direction. Nice shot onto Hyper, but he misses out, and it's Hyper to capitalize, giving DarkZero the round and a 5-2 lead.
Oh, for a brief moment there, I was with Bosco power. I felt it when he got that shotgun injury onto the original planter. I thought, this is it. Bosco is going to show up big. And to be fair, big he was. He showed up in a fashion, but couldn't close out the round entirely. That 1v2 post plant, DarkZero established perfect crossfire. There is no way you walk through that door without getting taken out. It is a frustrating time to be SSG. The roam, they wasted so much time, but then they kind of lingered around in kitchen, hallway, and bar, and it seemed kind of like they weren't exactly sure on where exactly DarkZero had their presence, and they weren't sure where they were going to be safe or where they were going to be in trouble. Stuck around for too long, and 3 players fell as a result. Well, I say 2.5 because it was an injury onto Fultz, but... Curious if they could have just ran into strip, expanded out more horizontally, maybe broken down the main double door, ran into lounge, maybe try and retake garage or staircase, go for a flank, hide inside of strip, whichever. Kitchen, Hot and Cold tried his best, didn't get much for his money, ultimately got taken down. It's a nice try. But overall, SSG playing a bit too isolated, one would say. And I would also argue, the fallback was nice. The second they had wasted 60 seconds, they said, you know what, it's fine, we can drop right now, it doesn't matter. But you could also argue that they could have gained more time. DarkZero was very far away from them. They didn't know about the whereabouts of these players, but they chose to drop anyway, playing it safe, but then staying around for too long. So I'm curious exactly what the game plan was. It seems like it's a big mixed from SSG. And you spoke about the SSG roam strat. Well, the castle got brought out. That is kind of like the piece of the puzzle that they did not show the last time. And now bar is more fortified for them. Actually, I'm completely lost here because it's your defense. Completely lost.
I am still very much hoping for a gym or a bar stock defense, but we have a gym defense instead in the mix. No timeout's been called yet by Space Station. Timeout's still available for both teams. DarkZero pulled that ripcord early on to take their timeout back in Villa, or rather Space Station did, and then DarkZero followed back on Villa. Timeout taken by SSG on Coastline. So far, Space Station have tried to use that, what could you call it? Just an opportunity to recenter yourselves. Hasn't exactly paid off the way they wanted.
No.
It's still available for them, and still available for both teams at this current point. First focal point, by the way, of attacking on Jim and Master is open up the jacuzzi wall, and, well, job done.
Pambasu has been put on thermite duty, by the way, and he's not had the most amazing Clubhouse so far, but There is this thing where you can say that whenever somebody is shining, let them shine. If this game just isn't Pambasu's, let someone else shine instead. He had his moments on both Villa and he had his moments on Coastline. It is completely fair to not have a perfect best of 3, and Pambasu has done incredible work so far, and he'll now be breaching walls and doing the support job instead, allowing for others to take in his place. Good joining for here from DC, actually. They know exactly the whereabouts of this garage player.
They've got that information, and NJR will be the one to follow up as Rampy now looks above, though they are down below. Does Rampy know of this information? NJR is there to greet him. Rampy could very easily be flummoxed by this, but he seems to have some kind of sixth sense.
Yeah,
Instead, will
literally.
drop. Smart play by him. Fultz is still up there for the record. I don't know if the position of the buck is there, but NJR catches Rampy, and now Fultz will have to be the one to follow up. Another opening pick for DZ. This bodes really well.
I'm really impressed by how well they're reading the situation. NJR does have drones everywhere, and he's been using them to great effect so far, but Fultz, I believe, has sneaked up, and they do not know he's right. No, they do not! Shot in the back, but Canadian finds 2. Window gets swamped, but does not find the kill, and DC have everything. Sight, advantage, you name it.
Well, it's not just distracting us, it's distracting them as well, as all the action seems to be off-site. Pambazu's been dropped. Eclipse will get the diffuser down quite well. Tim and Canadian still upright. Down goes Fultz. Canadian on a heater right now. Looking for a 4K. He's got hot and cold to find. But Pambazu taken down. It's Canadian to indeed get the 4K. And hey, DarkZero's on series point.
There it is. I mean, now all they gotta do is avoid the tail of Villa, where they start getting sloppy and the time starts running out and they start suffering from their own consequences. They need to keep up this momentum. They've been doing such a good job throughout most of Villa, throughout most of Coastline, and to be honest, they've done an incredible job throughout the entirety of Clubhouse so far, and they're now on match point, map point, series point. And we're going back downstairs to church. Canadian back onto the floors, utility clear, Hyper on that signature Sophia from back before the nerf came through, and yeah, Panba staking the hard support duty on Clubhouse. I love the flexibility.
Remember when I said that coming into this matchup, all Pambazu had to do was get 8 kills. That was it, just 8 kills.
Just 8
for him
kills.
to break triple digits, and Pambazu has 1 kill.
He might get 8 deaths. He dies this round and they win. That's 8
I don't know
deaths.
if that necessarily counts.
You can't just like take the numbers and like transfer them. That's not how it works.
The one thing I will say about DarkZero, one of the biggest flaws that DZ has had is that when their top performers go quiet, there hasn't always been a strong supporting cast to pick up the pieces. And I think bringing in a player like Canadian, changing the rules around, changing around maybe the way that they structure their attacks, it's really helped them pay off, because Pambazu was the reason why this team was so competitive on Villa. Along with Eclipse, Pambazu was almost the sole reason through most rounds on Coastline as to why this team was competitive. Now here on Clubhouse, it's a 6-2 scoreline for DarkZero, and Pambazu is the worst player in the whole lobby.
That sounds so sad.
And yet it doesn't matter, because NJR and Hyper, the 2 players that you are so used to hearing carrying the banner for DarkZero, they have been the team to make space. They've been the duo that's been capitalizing off of good information. They've been capitalizing off of each other's plays, and they are pulling this team forward. Well, I say that, but Canadians also 9-4. But
I mean, to be fair, they're all very close. 8, 7, 8, 9. The 4 players, so minus Pambasu, are all almost dead even. There's a 2 kill difference between the top and bottom player of those 4. That's the 9 and the 7, Eclipse and Canadian. So that is quite phenomenal. That is a team effort throughout the entire lineup.
I am amazed, though, by the way, that SSG have not taken this time out, Nick. I really, really am. And I know that it's low-hanging fruit to talk about, but I am frankly stunned that we have not seen that from them yet, because this is an opportunity for them to settle it down. Even if you think it's a lost cause, and even if you don't think you can get back mentally into the game, this is a huge gamble, frankly.
I'm sure they think they can come back. Sometimes I do think there's an aspect where it's like, okay, is there any reason to? Not because we're going to lose anyway, but more in the sense of, are what we're going to talk about actually going to change things? Because if you're just losing gunfights, maybe making poor decisions, or just playing subpar for a couple of rounds, you're not magically gonna get that back into swing. If they're playing as they're supposed to, the timeout ultimately might not do anything for them.
I mean, it didn't really do all that much on Coastline, right? So that's something to keep your mind on. Either way, Nick, this is the calm before the storm.
I have a bad feeling, Parker. The time is ticking down, and DC are being a bit slow. I don't want to see Villa all over again. I want to see them attack with like 20, 15 seconds left at the least.
Well, DZ seemed to get a call to go one way, but then thought otherwise
Yeah.
of it. Now looking over towards Moto. Every player in the lobby still alive. DarkZero looking to advance to the finals tomorrow to play against the winner of Oxygen versus Sonics. That match is still coming up. Once this one is done, we've had a thrilling series thus far. First kill is going to go in favor of Spacestation, though. An opportunity for DZ to capitalize off that, and they do just that. But Bosco with 2 of his own. Hyper swinging over towards Blue, softening up Foltz, and he'll get the collapse and the kill. Next one's up the Goyo. Hyper on the left as the explosion goes off, and out goes the volcanic shield, but a Nitro Cell tossed out will net. It's Canadian to clutch out against his old team in a 1v3. If you believe in magic, there's an opportunity for him to do this. The storylines just write themselves, Nick. 10 seconds to go, and they're playing keep away. He'll flash all the way down and get swung on. There's no miracle happening for DarkZero. Space Station stave off defeat for one more round at least, as it's still 6-3 for DarkZero.
It's almost as if DarkZero, they start feeling the pressure as the win is within their reach. It was a little bit slower than it was before. It was a little bit less decisive than before. And the only real reason as to how it got so close was off Hyper basically getting swung by multiple members of SSG, handing him these kills for free. If that had not happened, that would have been a much more convincing round from the defensive side of Space Station. But it became so close because, well, let's swing it. Let's see if we can destroy this person instead of Blue. Hyper with the LMG said no, and he found some freebies. Padding his stats, should I say? I always get that wrong. Statting the pad or padding the stats. It's
I mean,
always...
you could stab the pad, sure, why not?
Yeah, sure.
Why not? in this
Bar!
instance?
Bar! It happened! We did it! Match
We did
point!
it! Hey!
Every map, every bomb site in this series from these teams. Now, DarkZero, sure, they didn't play Bar, but SSG did. And if they did take it to OT, DarkZero has to do Bar as well.
You speak it into existence, and I
Yes.
feel like that's what I did. I feel like I spoke it.
That was all
I
you.
said it out into the ether, and here we are, now on Bar Stock. All 3 maps played today. Every single bomb site
Wow.
has now been shown at least once, and that's great, frankly.
Yep.
It's nice to see that, and we're not in the period of time where these are seen as throws. It's not like some troll pick that you just trot out for funsies because you know all hope is lost. No, this is a viable bomb site, but I will say, as exciting as a Bar Stock defense is to watch, I am not sold that it is a bona fide site in comparison to the 3 others, and it is entirely possible that SSG are making a critical error here. But at the same time, where did the comeback begin for Space Station on Villa?
Library.
It was library and living room. So an unorthodox bomb site comes out and Space Station makes the most out of it, and we're in an opportunity to see history repeat itself.
That's quite beautiful, and it might be one of those situations again where, yeah, it's hard to defend, but also, how do you attack this bomb site? We don't really know. I will say DC looking like they have a plan. They open up that strip wall with the first exothermic charge from Pambasu, so that means that Hot and Cold is now under pressure, although not under fire just yet. And they're gonna make their way into Jacuzzi up above, trying to take both the horizontal and the vertical side step by step.
We open up this Jacuzzi wall, like you said, still in trouble. They're going to throw an armada of drones at him. He's got the alibi decoys there, the clones, as you want to call them, that are just going to try and bide him some time in what's going to be a Hall of Mirrors strategy. Canadian gets the very first lead-off pick here as he takes out Skies. That's your castle down. That's a substandard gun off of the board, though Skies is a very strong player. Canadian continues to heat up with his 11th kill, leading the lobby and leading his team.
Yeah, Canadian actually having a really good series overall. We spoke about him not having the most phenomenal stats, but he's really been pulling through in that regard.
It's Cold now under pressure inside of Strip. He's just getting flashed and stunned, and they're looking to capitalize. How does he pop up and win that? The body falls in front of him, but Hyper is able to out-duel Houghton from the side, giving them control of Strip for once. This is the advantage for DarkZero still. A 4v3. Sitting in the midst of the bomb site is Bosco. Foltz not too far off for support, and Rampy is above. This is DZ's opportunity to seize the moment with a minute left, claw their way towards the bomb site, and destroy the remaining players from Space Station to secure their spot in tomorrow's grand finals.
DC utilizing that body system to perfection, making sure that if Hot and Cold finds one, he does not find the second, and that is crucial for this round. Now they have time, they have man advantage. It's all into DarkZero's hands. They can choose to win, but Bosco says no, shuts down Hypers in his tracks. 3 versus 3 with 30 seconds left.
The comeback is brewing, but DZ don't want to slip up too much. Eclipse takes down one. Bosco absolutely pouncing on Canadian, taking full advantage of a blind spot. Rampy's now the next one to go. Bosco will need to clutch out, and there's a triple for him. A quadruple kill is what's needed, a quadra if you want to call it that. As Eclipse now, a grenade in hand, will trudge through the smoke. Bosco has an idea of where he is. Another smoke canister goes out, and he sees him! And what a clutch from Dylan Bosco! Bosco, a name you hear time and time again. Space Station will not let this one slip away, and they've won 2 rounds in a row. Still match point for DarkZero, but Space Station still alive.
We spoke about curses in the negative sense of opening kill equals win the round. How about weakest bomb site equals comeback enablement? Because that is what happened on Villa. It might be what happens now on Clubhouse. And that looked like it was going to go one way until Bosco showed up. And I want to say that one more time. Bosco for Clubhouse has single-handedly been keeping SSG in these rounds and in this game. Sure, Kids guys had the 1 versus Canadian on one of the earlier attacking rounds, but Bosco, since the side swap, has been doing everything in his power to make sure that they're not going to lose if it's up to him. 15-6, even using the FMG on Smoke because he wanted more firepower.
This is something that Space Station does up top, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see the same thing emerge from SSG were Bosco playing on that role, because the FMG upstairs allows you to play inside a garage and hold the opening, as you almost certainly will lose the wall into the B-bomb site. Now, they're Swiss cheesing it so they can open it up, and Fultz is going to reinforce with the Aruni gates, the Surya gates, the laser gates.
Laser gates.
I can't even come close to doing his accent. But they're going to reinforce and just sit tight with those mute jammers a little bit far back as to not interfere.
Yeah, so if you guys saw those, the cheese hole, the Swiss cheese as Parker mentioned on that main wall, the reason why teams do them is because it actually interferes with the Maverick. So when you go to Maverick the lines on the outside, because of how there's multiple layers of like the soft wall and the hard wall, it just takes more time, it's more annoying, and if you're an inexperienced Maverick player, which I pray that none of these pro players are because they're so good at the game, but if you are, it's going to slow you down quite drastically, whereas when you are really efficient with the gadget, it's only going to save you maybe a second or two, but something to note for your ranked games or your casual games if you're watching, want to bring some pro strats to that scene.
And the mute jammer obviously not working all that well, as
No.
they're able to open it up, and they're going to have to sacrifice a drone or some form of secondary utility through that laser gate.
Just run through it.
And there you go. I guess you just go right through it. That's how it works. Take the damage, just trudge on.
Yeah.
That was a Rotero drone as well, blowing up a piece of utility as Space Station are now hunkered down just off-site. Fultz playing in construction, hot and cold, over by Master.
Yeah, that mute jammer nerf really doing wonders for Pambasu. There is a jammer at both of these walls that have been opened up, but what happened with the jammer is that they reduce the vertical range on the wall, so if you put the exothermic charge quote-unquote perfectly on the wall, you can still blow it up regardless and get it opened up. It's very nice.
Bosco worried about being droned on out now as DarkZero have that opening that they were looking for in the CCTV, and they can just walk right in. This is something that SSG did, if you recall. It was Bosco who just literally walked straight in. And, I mean, DZ did it earlier on Coastline as well. Big stakes right now as DarkZero and Space Station both still have a timeout available, but DZ are at risk of choking this lead that they have currently stretched out quite far, but SSG clawing at their way back.
The fact that it's Bosco on this catwalk rafters is... Oh no, I was gonna set up, say it's beautiful because Bosco's been carrying his team to get shut down so fast. Hyper follows up onto Hot and Cold. Arguably 2-star players off the board. The third follows through. Eclipse finds him as well. This is not looking good for SSG, but Skies and Falls are still alive. It's the mute smoke duo, the SMG-11. They will have to make great work, but with 45 seconds left, there is time, but there's not enough guns, not enough manpower, and there is no C4. The Toxic Babes is all they have, and they will have to find 5 headshots if they want to live through this round. As the push comes through, there's a trade back and forth, but Canadian secures the final round and sends home his previous team, and DarkZero makes it to the grand finals tomorrow.
What a performance by DarkZero. It all started in Italy on Villa in a very close, a nail-biter of a matchup. 15 rounds needed between the two teams. Coastline goes very dominantly in DarkZero's favor, and just as you see a comeback brewing here on Clubhouse, it's DZ to drive the dagger through the hearts of Spacestation fans. And just like that, DarkZero make it to tomorrow's grand finals, looking to be crowned the champions of North America. They're going to wait patiently and watch as Oxygen versus Sonics fight for that second spot. And I'm actually interested to hear, and I hope it gets brought up in the interview, is there a team that they're eager to fight out of those two? Do they want OXG, or do they want the Sonics, or do they care at all? Because inarguably, the team that came in with the most to lose just lost. Spacestation, the favorites to go all the way, are out. And I think it's safe to say that this upset from DarkZero is one that we'll remember for a while.
Certainly, and DarkZero, a team that's, I would say, like, unproven. They want to show that they got what it takes. They've kind of fallen short, and now with Troy Canadian on the roster, they had an okay Stage 3 of NAL. They did not do very good in Sweden at all, not even making playoffs. They probably want this win the most out of all these teams here because they want to prove themselves. Sure, SSG, they want to win just as much in one regard, but they're already proven to be arguably the best team in North America, except for at this event where the opposite happened, that DarkZero took them out.
It's good to be a big fish in a small pond, but the one thing that DarkZero will need to focus on, because no matter what happens tomorrow in their matchup, they're set for the 6th Invitational occurring in February of next year. DZ need to get better on an international stage.
Yes.
They have to. Like I said, you can be a big fish in a small pond, but you gotta do better outside of the 4 walls that you're used to competing in. The arena that they're at in Las Vegas, I'm glad that you feel comfortable there. But when you go to Mexico and you make it to the quarters and then get smoked, under crazy circumstances, I will say, when you come to Sweden, you have one of the most disappointing performances. When DZ also had a disappointing performance at SI all the way last year, this is a team that can prove that they can contend with the best of NA, but they need to contend with the best of Europe, with the best of APAC, with the best region in all of Rainbow Six right now, Latin America. So, congratulations to DarkZero. I'm glad, honestly, very glad to see them bounce back from their performance in Sweden. I'm extremely excited to see what they do tomorrow. And what a showing they had over Spacestation today.
I'm really glad they ended up keeping the momentum going to the second map, because the way they lost Villa on max OT, basically running out of time with a Banshee slowing them down, it is heartbreaking. They basically had won the round and then lost it. But they didn't show that. Coastline, bang of a match, aggressive, confident. Clubhouse, they just annihilated SSG on what I would argue is SSG's most famous for map, at least.
One of their best maps. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, the SSG that we saw that could dust teams on Oregon wasn't given a more favorable set of maps today. I know that there was some speculation on the desk as to whether DZ actually picked good maps for this matchup, but the answer is obviously yes. DZ were the better team today. They were dominant in so many ways. They could have very easily won Villa and made this a pretty simple 2-0, but no, like DarkZero fans are so accustomed to, nothing comes easy for all of you, and you know that. But they've still got another match to play tomorrow, and we have a beautiful group of gentlemen on a desk to talk about Spacestation versus DarkZero.
Parker, I am blushing. By the way, you and Pangu are looking extra beautiful in your Indochino, especially with the turtlenecks, man. I love it. But with the highlights brought to you by Predator, ladies and gentlemen, they did it. DarkZero etched out a win against Spacestation Gaming, 2-1 with a big win on Clubhouse, a confident win as well, to go ahead and book their trip to the finals.
And boy, they needed this win badly. For a team that had a lot of questions coming into this entire weekend, we didn't know what they were going to look like. Would it be the same DZ that went to Sweden that had a lot of confidence issues? Or was it going to be the DarkZero that busted balls when they were in those last 3 players of the North American League? And that's what they turned into. Their attacking strategy was locked in and solid. We didn't really have to worry about any really crucial mistakes, and instead, what do we see? A DZ that comes back from SSG winning a bar stage defense, and they take the entire series home.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with DZ is we had the questions. Identity crisis, what is happening? What's their map pool looking like? We saw the maps earlier on. As soon as I saw them pick Coastline, I knew that that extra little bit of time in between the Sweden Major and this, the end of the NL and this, it means a whole lot. We're finally seeing the fully fleshed out DZ. They're hitting their stride at the right time if this is the event that they truly are gunning for. Sure, you have SI right after, and that can almost make NA Finals a trampoline. It can spring you forward, get that momentum, because DZ, they're built on that.
Here's the problem, though. We looked at SSG as being the best overall team in the North American League for this year. What does this loss mean for them? They had 2 first-place finishes, only 2 losses over the course of every single best-of-1 they played. Now, they're gone. They're either the 3rd or 4th overall team in the NAL for a whole year when they dominated the leaderboards for 2 straight stages. DarkZero essentially got the upset of the year.
And even with CDAP's player to watch, which is Pamba going 1-9, it really didn't matter because DarkZero etched it out with teamwork to win 7-4. And speaking of which, we're going to have an interview with him shortly. He's going to be on the screen in a moment. But take a look at Bosco, 15-7. The man went down with a fight he did not want to lose, but Spacestation Gaming, that's going to be it for him. DarkZero, I am so excited to see what's going to be expected from them, especially tomorrow in the finals. But when it comes to Spacestation Gaming, I mean, CDAPS, what are your thoughts?
It's still a really good season for them. Overall, stage to stage, they were consistent, they were strong, but this is a roster that is built for international success. That's what they want, that's what they're craving, and right now, NAL, I don't necessarily know what the kind of priorities are straight for this team, but their priorities are definitely going to be set for SI. They're going to try to prove what they were not able to prove in Sweden. That's what they're truly gunning for. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be too much of a hit. It might be a pride kind of thing. They're like, oh no, we're technically not the best seed out of NA, but they're going to try to prove it in a couple of months.
But they're going to try to be the best team coming out of NA, definitely.
For sure.
But ladies and gentlemen, we have a treat for you. Yes, Christmas is around the corner, but we brought Pamba as the prize. We have an interview with the player, one of the rookies from DarkZero. Let's put him up on the screen. Pamba, and if you can hear me, by the way, congratulations, you're going to the grand finals. I have to ask you straight up, man, this is your rookie year. What expectations, or excuse me, what goals are you trying to set before this season of NAL is over?
I just wanted to prove that, DarkZero can still be like a dominant team. They've had a few rough stages, like even with me on it, but we just want to show that we can compete and win it all.
Yeah, and I guess one of the biggest things would be you yourself as a player. You were brought in as that really just spearhead, highly aggressive player, but you've slowly learned more and more and are really excelling on a bunch of different roles. Who exactly would you kind of attribute a lot of your success and growth to?
I'd say it's definitely the overall team. It's not one specific person. It's players who've also played flex and support roles, but the coaching staff, it's been a lot of hard work. When I joined the team, I didn't expect to play a role like this, but, we have to learn.
The differences between stages 2 and 3 for you were also kind of drastic because you had to go from someone doing shot calling, and then when Troy came in, I'm sure it was a drastically different experience. But I did want to ask you, what's the biggest change overall that you've liked from stages 2 to 3 so that now you're in a grand final position to potentially win the entire NAL season?
Yeah, I'd say adding Troy has been a massive change. It came with a lot of pros and cons initially, but I'd say it's gotten a lot better. Troy coming to the team allows for a lot more flexibility. Like, he can call better, and he can play all these kind of ops. So it just improved our overall flexibility, and we just went out different rounds.
All right, Pamba, the very last question. Is there a team that DarkZero would like to play in the finals between Oxygen and Sonics? Who would it be? And tell me why. Be honest.
Okay. I want to play against OXG. Me personally, I'm really good friends with Kino, and I love playing against him. So far, 2-0 against him, but we'll see.
All right, Pamba, congratulations, man. We love seeing
Thank
your
you.
gameplay today. Map number 3, you better not have that again tomorrow, okay? You better pop off. We know you're good for
It was
it.
a thermite.
There we go. You have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. You too.
No problem. All right, fellas, so you heard it. He wants to battle against another rookie that has taken the league by storm. It's going to be Kino. That's going to be a great matchup if it happens.
I'm down for that. Yeah, the amount of time that Panba spent in CL was pretty negligible, but Kino, he did have some bouts with him as well, which I loved. And he's right. 2-0 so far, OXG and DZ. They fought together, and Panba right now has got the winning record. They have OXG's number technically. I like the matchup, though. I think most of us thought SSG is probably going to go to the grand finals.
Yeah.
And now that it's DarkZero, either OXG or Sonics is going to turn that into a really good series. What?
I mean,
What?
both of you guys predicted it, but I did not.
Get this man out of here.
I've got the 100. You guys have the zeros.
I want Jesse back right now.
Did the new guy just try to flex on us?
I miss the Canadian.
I did.
I miss this man so much.
I turned off his mic. He's done for the day. But that's
Rookie
pretty much
hazing.
it.
We have to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming up next, we're going to have our last series of the day. This is going to be an exciting one. If you're new to Rainbow Six Siege, you're going to love it. Just going to be heavy firepower all around and a highlight place you do not want to miss. It's going to be Oxygen versus Sonics. We'll catch you guys after the break.